At this point, everything is being recorded. Now, most of the time, this is not how I start a course, but most of you have been here before, right? Okay. Last term, we used Blackboard as a course management tool, right? This year, we're still using Blackboard, but it's a new version of Blackboard called Blackboard Ultra. Okay? Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is that you may notice there are a few things that look, I don't think that's what I want, okay, differently in it. And so today and today only, I'm going to teach or start this process from Blackboard. Now, I'm going to apologize because all day long it's been so incredibly slow, but I just wanted you to be able to see how it looks. Now, I don't know if your opening screen looks like this, but you may recognize that is the icon that we used to use for Blackboard, a blackboard with a B and a B in it, okay? Here is the new icon, and this is called Blackboard. It's also called Blackboard Learn, but it's called Blackboard Learn Ultra. So I'm going to start that. And earlier today, this thing took. Now, have any of you looked at Blackboard this term? You have. Did you notice some differences? Okay. Was it all easy to navigate? Okay. That's what I've heard from students. Of course, I've heard some students say they didn't like it at all. Others say, well, it's easier to navigate than the old one. But you didn't have any trouble logging into it, right? Okay. Instructors, they make it more difficult to log in, so this is going to take a little bit. Not bad, but okay. Okay. I have to log in through a third-party account, and y'all don't have to do that, right? Okay. So that's what's a little bit bizarre here, but that doesn't bother you any, I hope. Okay. Now, then I have to log in again and again. That's why I said it's just a little more involved from the instructor viewpoint. Okay. Now, your screen probably doesn't look just like this. You probably don't have this stream type thing on it. Yours may look more like this, but I don't know because I never see the instructor side. So these are all the classes I'm teaching this term. And I'll scroll down through and get to our class. There it is. And I don't know if this is how it looks when you pull it up. Something similar to that. So it's not quite like the old Blackboard. The old Blackboard had a series of blue tabs over here. So you don't have the tabs anymore, but everything is right here in front of you pretty much. Okay? So I'm going to start with the syllabus today. And again, I'll apologize because these take a long time to open. It'd be much faster if I did it from my flash drives. But now, before, I could just click on this and it would open. Okay? For some reason, it's not doing that today. I have to come over here, which you shouldn't have even this option to do, and download the original file because you shouldn't even have my original file. But I don't know. I don't know how this works for you. But that's how I have to do it, and it takes forever. And Blackboard is always slow, and PowerPoint is always slow, and this is a combination of the two of them here. Microsoft is always slow. Can I get your name, please?
Brandy.
I'm sorry?
Brandy.
Brandy? Is that Brandy Lane? Okay. Now, my hearing's bad. Are you saying Brandy or Brandis?
Brandy's. The second one.
As in a Y, as if it ended just in the I?
No, I-S.
I-S. So you do say the S or not?
Yes.
Okay, Brandy's. Okay. I don't hear well, so I couldn't tell. I apologize. I had less than 45 minutes to eat lunch today, and it turned out being more like 15 minutes. So I may still have salad in my teeth. I apologize if I do, but I'm feeling all sorts of weird things. So here we go. Now this is what's been taking so long. Word is so slow opening through Blackboard. In fact, it looks like it's hung up. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Here is the syllabus, and we may run into a few changes, but hopefully this is pretty close to being true. All right, the course is Physical Science 111, Physical Science 1. Everybody in the right class? Good, okay. They say software and Blackboard supported course, blah, blah, blah. It's a 4 credit hour course. 3 of those credit hours come from the theory part, which is basically the lecture type stuff. 1 of those credit hours comes through the lab. Even though we're in lab 2 hours, okay, but because this is a mini-term course, it says 5 contact hours. It's basically 4.5 contact hours every day, okay, almost a full week every day, okay. That's what mini-term courses do. So we'll be here from 1:15 until 5:45, basically every day. There will be a few days will be an exception, but we'll be here, okay. We'll have, actually it says 3 credit hours theories. It'll be 2.5 hours of theory, 2 hours of lab, and even though you only get 1 hour credit for it, so that'll be 4.5 hours rather than 5 contact hours. So we start at 1:15 and to 3:45. Now, in theory, this is what we're doing for the class, and then 3:45 to 5:45 for the lab. Okay? It's not always going to be that way. In fact, today, for instance, I'm counting what we're doing at the beginning sort of like our lab, because we don't have enough material to do a lab yet. So basically, all this beginning stuff is going to be like a lab. Okay? And then, hopefully, we'll get to doing a class work later today. So we'll be turning things on their head right now. Okay? Later, okay, were you already here? Okay, I thought so. Okay. Later, there will be some days we may only have 2 hours of class, and then 2 hours of lab, and then have a test at the end. Okay, 30 minutes is usually what we do for tests. There may be some days we'll have any combination. We'll do what makes sense for us. Okay? Now, let me explain to you why I do things that way. If we have a test scheduled for a day, I always want to make that the very last thing that day. The reason for that is when you finish the test, you can go home. If I did it early in the thing and then somebody took longer on the test and you took a very short time, you'd have to sit around and wait for everybody to finish the test before we could get going. And then, so if we have a test, that's going to be the last 30 minutes. If we have a lab without a test, that'll be the last 2 hours, just as it's listed here. However, if we do a lab and a test, it'll be the test the last 30 minutes, the lab the 2 hours before that, and that way we'll only have 2 hours of class before that. So we're going to do whatever makes the most sense. That way, if y'all finish the lab early, we'll get started on the test early, and then boo-hish, y'all get to go home early. But you can live with that, right? Okay. So this is how we have to list it. In reality, we'll do it differently. Okay. However, whatever works best. We do Tuesday and Thursday, classroom campus. Now, the class generally will always be in this room, 255, and most of our labs will be in this room, 255 as well. There will be one lab that will go to a computer lab somewhere, and I have to find what's available at that time. So we'll be doing that one day. There will be another, at least one time, when we will go down to 259. That's why I put that one down there, because that actually is going to be one we're going to be doing. If you've ever heard of a wet lab, this technically is a wet lab. We're going to be doing some things with measuring stuff, okay? So, anyway, most of the time we'll be here. I'll bring the materials into this class and we'll do the labs in here. Okay, if y'all don't know it yet, my name is Charles Fowler. My office, for some of you who, the first time you've had me, is in room 265. This is here on Bessemer campus. I'll show you where that is. Here is the classroom here in the corner, okay? You go out the door here and hang a left. You go down that half flight of stairs right there. Keep going all the way down the hall to the last office on the left, and that's 265. It's just before you get to the stairwell that goes down and out or up to the third floor, just before that, right next to the mechanical room. That's my office, 265. So that's where I am Monday through Thursday when I'm in my office. I don't have many office hours, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, on Friday, I'm usually over on the Birmingham West Campus. Are y'all familiar with Birmingham West Campus? Okay. You know there's a sort of a quad of buildings there. The A building, which is the administration building, and that long building called the academic building, the B building. Okay, that's the building I'm in on Fridays. Then there's the science building, a little short C building, and then the library is here, D building. Okay, so I'm in the B building, the academic building. It's the end of the building toward the gym, the baseball field, and the tennis courts. That end of the building. And it's B122. It's actually Dr. Carl Pruitt's office. He has a suite of offices there. If you go in 122, his secretary's desk is right there, Miss Rose Saxton. I'm in the copy room that's behind her desk. He's in the big corner office on the right. I'm in the copy room right behind her desk. Okay, now, on this campus, Monday through Thursday, my phone number is 929-3449. And here's what I advise you. If you're trying to call me, only call through during office hours. Because if I'm not in my office, I'll never hear the phone ring. And our voicemail system is sort of sketchy. I can't swear I'll ever hear your voice message. Okay? So rather than you leaving me a message and then assume I've got it, I may never hear it. Okay? Sometimes it'll tell you the voicemail is filled. Sometimes it says it's not set up. Sometimes it takes it, but I never hear it. I mean, it's just very unreliable. Let's put it that way. So only call during office hours, and then if you don't get me, just hang up and call back a little bit later during office hours. Or you can email me. But most people here at the college, employees of the college, is first initial, last name, at lawsonstate.edu. Just that. No students or anything in there. A few people who have similar last names may have two letters before their last name, and a few people have special ones that they do, but most of us are first initial, last name at lawsonstate.edu. Now here are my office hours, at least as I understand them now. I'm going to have to change some of these because a few things have changed since I made up the syllabus. Mondays are pretty much as listed. I used to have a Math 100 class in the morning, but I gave that to another instructor because he needed it. So basically from 8 to 10, I'm in the office. And then I've got a Calculus 1 class, followed by a Calculus 3 class, followed by a differential equation class. I get through that at 3:45, so I'm here from 3:45 to 6. So I've got two good chunks of office hours on Mondays. On Tuesdays, almost no office hours. This looks like way more than what I've got. I'm here from 8 to 8:30, okay? I've got pre-calculus algebra 8:30, pre-calculus trig, which I thought was not going to make, so I put my office hours starting then. It made. Back when I was doing this, I only had 4 students in it. It got up to 7, so it looks like it is going to make. So the followed by pre-calculus trig, followed by linear algebra, which at the time I made this up, there were no students in it. Now I've got students, so we'll be teaching that one. So basically, my office hours start at this 8 to 8:30, and now it's 12:45 to 1:15. Okay, 30 whole minutes for me to eat lunch. Okay, but I bring my lunch, I eat in my office. So 12:45 to 1:15. That's all, folks. And then this class starts at 1:15, and we go until 5:45. So it's very few office hours on Tuesday and Thursday. this should read 12:45 to 1:15. Okay, Wednesdays, 8 to 10 is the same as Monday. However, I don't have this block of time at the end because I teach a physics class on the Birmingham East Campus from 4:30 to 6:30. So I have to leave this campus as soon after 3:45 as I can in order to get over there by 4:30. All right. Can I get your name, please? Brianna. Okay. And is that what you go by?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we do have someone at the top of the alphabet. Okay. I went through 3 names before I hit anyone that was here. I was afraid I would have the wrong class. Okay. So the next biggest block of time after 8 to 10 on Wednesdays, I am in the office from 11:45 until 12:30. So I'll put that in there, 11:45 to 12:30. That's when I'm eating my lunch, but that's all I got on Wednesday, 8 to 10, 11:45 until 12:30. Thursday is just like Tuesday, very few office hours. This is incorrect. This should be 12:45 to 1:15. And then Fridays, I'm on the Birmingham West Campus. That's what I was talking about before, in Dr. Pruitt's office right here, B122. I'm there usually from 8 to 12. Most of the time I'm there before 8. Almost always I'm there after 12. However, let me tell you this. They love calling meetings on Fridays. So I can't guarantee I'll be in the office that whole time. If they let me know ahead of time, I'll let you know, well, I'll be in meetings from 10 to 12 or something like that. But sometimes it's that morning that I find out. So I won't be able to always let you know. Now, the course description. This is not something I came up with or anyone here at the college came up with. This is something that was agreed to by the 2-year college systems and the state-supported 4-year colleges and universities. And this is what they decided. If we teach this, they give you credit for it. So here's the course description, really simple. This course provides the non-technical student with an introduction to the basic principles of geology, oceanography, meteorology, and astronomy. Laboratory is required. Now, that's the way they write it. The way I teach it is the way most books put it together. Okay, now let me tell you something about the books as well. Most physical science books are big, thick books like this. Okay, and they usually have around 4 parts to them. Okay, like this one does. The first part in this book is physics. The second part is chemistry. The third part is astronomy. And the fourth part is earth sciences. Now, they may name them differently, but most books are organized that way. Now, here in Alabama, though, we put Physical Science 1, the one, of course, we're in that now, as this, geology, oceanography, meteorology, and astronomy. That's basically astronomy and earth science, which most of these books have as a second half. And then Physical Science 2, I don't know if any of you are going to be taking that in the second mini-term, that will be our physics and chemistry, which is in the first half of the book. So it makes for a little awkwardness there as far as how the book is organized. And then 2, the way this was stated, it says geology, oceanography, meteorology, and astronomy. Because the book is put together, we do astronomy first, and then we do earth sciences next, and that includes all 3 of those. Mostly geology, but a little bit of those. Okay, actually, it'll be astronomy, geology, meteorology, and oceanography. Actually, Earth's Waters is the name of the chapter. We'll see that later. So that's a little bit different from what it's written. We don't have to do it in this order, but we do it in the order the book does. Okay. Now, there's no real prerequisite for this course. It says as required by program, which I never figured out what that means. But let me put it this way. You'll need a little bit of math, not a whole lot of math. If you had anything equivalent to 098, you're fine. Even if you're taking 098 now, you're fine. Okay? That's all that we need. There will be some math involved in the course, but it's sort of minimal. The textbook, as I just was pointing out, now this is the big book, okay? It's, the author is Tillery, Bill W. Tillery. Physical Science, the 11th edition, down here, okay? It's a McGraw-Hill book. So if any of you are on that Cengage Unlimited, doesn't work for this book because this is McGraw-Hill. Students are expected to bring the textbook, paper, pencil to class each meeting. Calculators are permitted. Now, in this part of the class, the astronomy and earth sciences, we're not going to be doing that many actual problems that you'll be working. If you take the Physical Science 112, we'll be doing lots of problems. Physics and chemistry, you hardly can do that without writing stuff down. So you won't need that much here, but when we do the lab, you certainly are going to need pencils for sure. Now, if you prefer ink, that's fine with me, okay, but I'll make a confession here. When I do science and math, I tend to make errors, so I like to use a pencil so I can erase, but if you're comfortable without it, it's fine. Calculators are permitted. In fact, I highly recommend them for the course. They're not going to be essential. Most of the math is going to be pretty simple. Okay. Now, Blackboard. I don't like this paragraph, but they don't let us change it. So, all courses must use Blackboard to gain access to vital course information such as the syllabus. Now, first place, courses don't use Blackboard. You know, students use Blackboard, but we'll put that aside now because courses don't gain access. Students gain access, okay? The vital course information such as the syllabus. Well, I'm in Blackboard right now. We're looking at the syllabus. So, yeah, this is true. Handouts. Just about always, if I have a handout, I'm going to hand it out to you, okay? Now, I do have put some things on Blackboard that are just of interest, and you certainly can look at those too. I wouldn't call them handouts, but I guess that's one thing. The PowerPoint shows, and you'll see a little bit later where the PowerPoint shows will be. But in addition to that, remember, I'm recording everything. I teach from the PowerPoint shows, so when I'm teaching from that, they will be in the YouTube video as well as in static form in Blackboard. So they'll be there in two places, actually. Activities. Now, a lot of times the school will put some sort of activities on Blackboard, and occasionally I might, because here's how I usually teach the course. One of these has a problem already. Historically, I like to take this class when we finish the astronomy section, which is chapters 14, 15, and 16. I like to schedule a field trip to Stanford University at the planetarium. However, the guy who was in charge of the planetarium got a job up in Huntsville at NASA, at the planetarium there, or at the Space and Rocket Center, or whatever. So he left Stanford, and they are, as of last term, they were without a director of the planetarium, so no one can give the show, okay? Because it's a pretty expensive deal there, and they've got to have someone qualified to do it. So last term, I couldn't take my class. If they've hired somebody by now, we'll try to schedule that field trip. So if that comes about, that activity is likely to be posted out there, but I'll be telling you about it in class, and you can hear it through the YouTube videos. So technically they'll be there, but I don't always type it out and put it on Blackboard that way. Assignments, again, there's one already out there, your research paper assignment. You'll get to see that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Most of the rest of the time, you'll hear them through the YouTube videos, because I'll say them in class, that gets recorded, that's going to be a YouTube video. Again, I don't type them out. Announcements, especially if something changes like the field trips or things like that, I'll put those out there as announcements. Okay. Now, that was one field trip, possible, is the planetarium after chapter 16. The second one, if you remember, there was meteorology, which is weather type stuff. There's no lab in the lab manual anywhere that we have access to that has anything to do with that. So what I like to do, and we do this most of the terms, is do a field trip to Channel 13 Weather Center. Jerry and Kathy Tracy go to the same church I do. And so I know Jerry, and he welcomes us all the time. Last time Harmony Mendoza took care of us because Jerry was out or whatever. I don't remember what the deal was. But they're always very good about doing that. Now, they don't always host us because, especially in spring term, what happens usually in the spring? Tornadoes. If there is a intense, severe weather day, they can't have us there because they are constantly online, giving weather. So that has happened a time or two. So it may work out that we can't do that one too, but most of the time we do that. So if that comes about or any changes to it, I'll be putting an announcement for that. Now this next sentence I do not care for at all. Failure to use Blackboard will severely damage your ability to pass the course. Now maybe some people, and I think some people do, teach the courses. Basically Blackboard's almost teaching the course for them. I don't buy that. I'm a dinosaur. I like to teach my own course. Okay, so to me that's an overstated sentence for this class. If I were able to change this, I'd say the proper use of Blackboard could greatly enhance your ability to do well in the course, rather than the other way around. But they put it there. They say we can't do it. Now I don't like this sentence either. Students should always check the Blackboard announcements and task pages prior to coming to class. Why would you think they'd say that? What's that?
Something maybe out there that you can list.
Okay. Maybe so. I hadn't thought of it from that way. The only thing I was thinking of, in case the instructor canceled class. Well, guess what? Some of you have been in my class before. How many classes have I canceled? Maybe one. And that I'll let you know well in advance, probably. I hope so anyway. I don't like to, and I will not cancel class unless I absolutely have to. Some emergency comes up, the odds are I'm not going to have time to put it out there on Blackboard anyway, okay? But, so I don't care for that too much. But anyway, that's beside the point. Let's scroll on down and talk about our professional competency and objectives. What are our student learning outcomes in this course? Students will demonstrate knowledge of stars, galaxies, and the solar system. That's basically chapters 14, 15, and 16. Okay? That's our astronomy part. After that, we'll try to schedule that lab for Sanford if they've got somebody there that can handle us. Students will demonstrate knowledge of rocks and minerals. That's chapter 17. Plate tectonics. That's chapter 18. And building and shaping the Earth's surfaces. That's chapters 19 and 20. Okay? Students will identify key indicators of weather and climate. That's chapter 23. Students will demonstrate knowledge of Earth's waters. That's chapter 24. And students will write a library internet-based research paper. That's the research paper. And you will also work together in groups to solve laboratory assignments. We have laboratory assignments for every chapter we do. And labs, if you think about it, thought I had just the word lab down here, but I don't. But collaborative lab is right in the middle of that. So you do work together. Now, let's talk about that for a moment. The astronomy labs are basically going to be paper labs, and we'll do those basically as an entire class. We'll do it all as one big lab group. And I do have some materials that you'll be operating and working with. Some of them are in the lab itself, and you'll be doing those. The one for chapter 16, we'll do the first part of it. The bulk of it we'll do together in class, but part of that one you're going to do at home over about a 2-week period. You're going to be observing the moon, okay? And that will be a long, drawn-out lab. But most of it we'll do in class. Okay, chapter 17, that's going to be the computer lab. Chapter 18 will have some lab component and some question and answer component. So the labs are going to vary lots of ways. Every chapter will have at least one lab. After 16, we may, if we go to the planetarium, that will be an extra lab. The chapter 23 lab is at the, unless there's one assignment there, that would be at the Weather Center if we can schedule that. And the chapter 24 is just going to be a paper lab that I had to come up with because we don't have one for us water either, but I've got that prepared already. Every chapter will also have a test, okay? So the labs will be done here. The test will be how you demonstrate the rest of it. The research paper is your writing component, and then we will have a comprehensive final exam. It's going to be a very easy exam, okay? It's going to cover all the chapters we did, but it's just going to hit the high points. That's why I say it's going to be pretty easy. So here's how I evaluate you based on these outcomes, okay? Research paper is required for the class. It will count as a test, but that test cannot be dropped. The research paper is required, okay? So everybody has to do that. A chapter test will be given at the end of each chapter. And that's a lot of chapters, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, 24. 9 chapter tests, okay? Research paper, 9 chapter tests, okay? Now, the lowest chapter test score may be dropped. Now, put the verb may in there, because what if you don't turn in a research paper? That's going to be a 0 because you can't drop that, okay? Then you're going to need every test you got to pull up that 0 average, pull it up to a decent score. So that's where I put may. But don't do that. Turn in a research paper so you can drop your lowest test score. Okay, there will be at least 1 laboratory assignment for each chapter. Each one has one. After chapter 16, we may have a bonus extra lab when we go to the planetarium. Okay? The lowest lab assignment grade may be dropped. Okay, and again, I say may. I drop it if it helps you. I don't drop it if it doesn't. Now, if we go on field trips, I can't force you to go on a field trip. So if we go to the planetarium, that's totally optional lab. Okay, if you go, there's nothing to turn in, no work you have to do. If you go, you get the 25 points for that lab. Every other lab, except for the field trips, you may lose a few points if you don't do everything. Okay, you're going to get 0 to 25 points. If you go to that one, you guarantee to get 25 points. Okay? If you go to the Weather Center, 25 points just for going. There's no write-up, nothing you have to do. You just get those. So those are just free and easy points. You know, just go and you get them. I will drop your lowest lab score. Those two are going to be 25, so those won't be. So basically, if you go to the planetarium, if we do get to go, you get to drop a second lab score. You're next lowest. If you go to the Weather Center, you get to drop another one. So you may drop up to 3 if we get to do the field trips. So it really behooves you to go, but you're not required to go. Okay. So the lowest lab score grade may be dropped. The laboratory grade will be averaged from the remaining laboratory assignments, and the lab average will count as 25% of the final grade. Now, where did that come from? Well, let's think about it. Remember that you got 4 credit hours for the course. 3 of those are from theory. 1 of those is from lab. 1 out of 4, 25%. So that's what I base the 25% on. So the average of your paper, the remaining test scores, when I drop the lowest test score, and the comprehensive final exam, that will be 75% of your final grade. And the comprehensive final exam cannot be dropped because that's part of your competency. That's how I measure how much you've learned in the course. Okay? Any questions on that? Yeah.
About the book, you said that's the book.
Okay, yeah. The one that I mentioned. Now, I'm glad you said something there. A student who was in my class the last time said, I don't need this book anymore. You can give it to anyone. Does anyone like to have the book? You will, okay? You spoke up first, so you did it. Okay. Now, let me point that out. Hold up, though. Okay? Notice this book is a lot bigger than that book because this book covers both sections, 111 and 112. That only covers 111. There's another book in the bookstore that's just like that covers 112. So if you are going to do both sections, you will need to get 2 books, unless you can find the big book, and that covers them both. But McGraw-Hill does these, what they call customized text, and they only do the chapters I teach, okay? So they've left off the chapters other. It should make it cheaper for you, even if you do both courses. I can't guarantee that, but that's what they told me. They did fall through on a couple things they said they were going to do, but otherwise it came out pretty well. All right. Any other questions? Okay, good question. Now, the dean or somebody just likes to harp all over plagiarism. So it's going to show up again. Don't do it. Okay, don't plagiarize. You know this drill. You know what you need to be doing. So don't do it. Okay. That said, why it's here, I don't know. But they said we couldn't do it. Now, end of the term, if you're in the 90s, you get an A, 80s B, 70s C. Don't go down here. Please don't go down here. 60s are D's and 50s and below are F. Now, because this is not a required course for any major, it's just a science course that everybody has, has to take some sort of science courses, you might be able to live with a D. In the past, Lawson didn't count a D as a passing grade. It wasn't exactly failing, but it wouldn't count it as passing. But some majors now do allow you to have a D or 2. Not in any required course, but in some courses. So I don't know whether D would count for you or not. It's certainly not going to help your grade point, or at least I hope it won't help it, because that's only 1 credit. And if your grade point is less than 1.0, yeah, a D would help, but not very much. But hopefully you're not there. F will never help. Okay, so don't go there. Try to stay up here at this point. Okay, now I apologize for this. I did change something here. Whoever it is that came up with this template and said we weren't supposed to change anything, I just couldn't help but change it. Here's how this originally was written. The instructor always rounds up, never down. That was how she first wrote it. And then they gave this example. For example, 79.5% will be rounded up to an 80%, a B, but 79.4% would remain a C. Well, guess what? That's a rounding down, okay? But she just said you wouldn't never round down, always round up. If you always rounded up, that would be an 80. But she said, no, it's not. It's a C. So I just changed this to say an instructor always rounds straight normally. Because I'm a math person, and that's normal. If you have a decimal that's 0.5 or greater, you round up. If 0.4 or less, you just drop it. Okay? So that's why I phrase it that way. Don't worry, most of you will never be that close. It's going to be pretty clear what you're making. Okay? Now, attendance. Just because I record all the classes, or I try to record all the classes, that doesn't mean it's a freebie that you can miss. Try to be here every day. And there's 2 really big reasons for that. The first I'll give you by an example. It happened several years ago, but it has happened before. That I came in to teach a class. I don't remember which class it was. First thing in the morning. I went to do Screencast-O-Matic. I could not get it to open. So I had a few minutes. I ran down to my office. I called, said, what's the problem? I can't get Screencast-O-Matic open. Well, I don't know. We'll have to check on that. So after that class, I went back to the office to see what was wrong, because I still couldn't get it open. Said, uh-oh, someone forgot to pay the bill. And so they cut us off. So it can happen. Hopefully it won't happen again, I won't have Screencast-O-Matic, so I can't record it. Okay? But this has also happened before. The server went down. Maybe after a severe thunderstorm or something like that. Without a server, we can't do anything, basically. So I can't guarantee that every class will be recorded. I will record every one that I can, but I can't guarantee. So please be here. Second reason is this. Have you ever tried to ask a YouTube video a question? They just don't respond, okay? So in class, you're able to ask questions, interact with me, interact with other students, I think you're getting a lot more out of it. So try to be here every class. Now, that stuff I was talking about with D's and F's, withdrawals go into that same category. Now, I don't know your status, and I really don't care to know your status, but I do know that most of our students here at Lawson State Community College are on some type of financial assistance, Pell Grant, Veterans Affairs, something, okay, work, something. Most of these programs, especially the federal programs, if you repeat a class, they'll pay for it one time. However, if you repeat it a second time, they won't pay for it. That's out of your pocket then, okay? Now, Lawson used to count D's as you'd have to repeat the class. I don't know for sure if it is this time. That depends on your major and that kind of stuff. So I can't swear, can't talk about D's, but I can talk about F's, okay? And F, you do have to repeat the class if you're going to get credit for it. Otherwise, it stays on your record. Now, I guarantee you, most of you, I hope, a D or an F is going to hurt your grade point average, right? You all have better than a 1.0 grade point, I hope. If you don't, then a D may help a little bit, but not very much. F is always going to hurt you. A W never hurts your grade point average. It doesn't affect you academically at all. It just keeps you from getting credit for the course. But guess what? A D or an F, or especially an F, you're not going to get credit for it either. And that hurts your grade point average. So there's no advantage to taking an F rather than a W. If you know you're going to get so far behind or you're so lost in the sauce you cannot pass the course, better to withdraw than to get an F. Probably better to withdraw and get a D, but that's up to you. You'll have to look into that yourself. So that's why I say that. Now, later we'll get to a very important date on the college calendar, academic calendar, that I'll point out to you associated with that withdrawal. We'll get there later. Okay. Now, makeup work. That is important. Let's see if this will, most of it shows here. If you noticed, we're going to have at least 9 or 10 labs, at least 9 tests, and we have 8 weeks, okay, of the class. This is a mini-term class. So we're going to have multiple labs most week and multiple tests most weeks, okay, or some weeks. I'll put it that way, not most weeks, some weeks. So guess what? Missing a class really hurts. Missing a lab really, really hurts, okay? Because it's hard to make up a 2-hour lab. I don't have that many office hours, and you probably don't have that much time. I'll help you as much as I can. Now, get this, I do record the labs, okay? However, you can't get everybody's measurements on a lab, in a recording, okay? I'll try to repeat as many things as I can, so you probably will be able to fill out most of the material from a lab if you listen to the YouTube video, okay? And I'll do a lot of the calculations on that lab, but it's easier to do it if you're here than if you're not here. So please try to be here. So if you do have to miss a class, especially if that means missing a test, which a lot of them will involve that, try to get it made up within a week. Try to get that lab made up within a week, okay? The reason for that, I want to give you your stuff back as soon as I can so you can see what you missed. Now, a lot of these things won't tie to each other all that strongly, but they are related to each other. And it'd be far better to know what you missed on the previous lab rather than making the same mistake again on the second lab, or the next lab. So try to get your stuff made up within a week if possible. Okay, now some of you are in military or something, you got to be gone for 2 weeks at a time. We understand that, and we take that into case. That's where the recording the videos, you'll be able to get them through YouTube. You may still be able to make up a lot of your stuff there. Okay. Now, I do try to start classes. I was a little late today because I had to contact an instructor because they added a course to her schedule last night and she didn't know about it. So I had to email her today to let her know. So there will be time, because I only have 30 minutes for my lunch and everything else between the last class and this class. So I may be a little late, but I'll try to be here on time. Try to get started right as much as possible. All right, academic integrity. We've already mentioned this once. Let me just summarize. Don't plagiarize, okay? It doesn't do you any good. You don't learn anything. Don't do it. Don't get into the habit of doing it. Cheating, don't do it, okay? You're not learning anything if you're copying somebody else, okay? And the whole purpose of being here is to learn, okay? So don't do it. I'll just leave them like that. Now this next section, I find, I don't even know why it's in here, but it is. Professional decorum, okay? You're encouraged, of course, to conduct yourselves in an adult professionals in training. Avoid behaviors that are distracting or disrespectful to your classmates or the instructor. I don't care about me, but your classmates, okay? So, please don't be doing anything that distracts anyone around you. So if you're on a website or something like that, and that's right in somebody else's face, that could be distracting. Don't do it. If you're listening to music and it's coming through your ear plug, don't do it, you know. Don't do anything that's going to hurt anybody else. If you go to sleep, please don't snore, okay? That can be distracting to other students. And literally, unfortunately, it was in this very class, sitting right where Tiffany is sitting, a student, I mean, he zonked out one day, and I kept hearing something. I was up here teaching away, and when I started hearing giggling, I turned around and looked to see what is going on here. I thought it was the fan room or something like that. He was sawing logs, and the other students were laughing. No one was paying any attention to me. So please, if you can help it, please don't snore, okay? And then, you know, I've never had people get rude or stuff, so don't do it, especially if it's distracting to others. Unnecessary traffic in the classroom. Sure, if you get your phone call and you need to go out to deal with it, deal with it. And these classes go a long time. If you need a break, I'd rather you take your break than mess up the class, okay? So if you got to go, go, okay? But if enough people are needing to go, we'll take a 5-minute break and try to, so try to keep that minimized, because it is distracting to others. Eating and drinking, okay? For instance, I just said I have 5 minutes, today I had less than 15 minutes for lunch. So if I were in the class, I would really appreciate it if I could snack on something. Of course, I'm an instructor, so I can afford to do that. So if you need to, go ahead. But let me say this. If you make a mess, you're going to clean up your mess, okay? So please take that. But then don't be eating or drinking or slurping and stuff that's going to be distracting to others, okay? So that. Wearing inappropriate clothing, sunglasses, hats, earphones, you know, I really don't care. I don't want you wearing or not wearing clothing that is going to be distracting to others, okay? Let's keep that. Everyone understands that. I don't care about the rest of it, you know, unless, of course, those earphones are making noise, that would be distracting. So please don't do it, you know. This is all common sense. Okay, those are all the things that we expect of you. This is stuff that you may reasonably expect of me or of us. Course concerns. If you feel like you're not being given a good shake in the class, in other words, not listening to you or not taking into account your thing, please, first step, talk with me directly, okay? We'll try to work it out, okay? New member of the class? Okay. Were you originally on the roll, or you just added? Oh, okay. You just added? Okay. You'll have to remind me of your last name, though. That's all right. I mean, I know you. Yeah, okay, Hannah. I couldn't remember. I knew it was Shalonda, but I wanted to put you in the right place here. Okay. All right. Good deal. So, first thing, come to me. we'll work it out. I promise I'll try to work it out, okay? If you don't feel like you get satisfaction from talking to me directly, then go to the department chair. Oh, that's me. Okay, so I'll work with you again. I'll write myself up, whatever, okay? After that, you can go to the associate dean. He has me in his office every Friday morning. He can chew me out then, so take care, go there. Then the dean, then the vice president, then the president. You can go all the way up, but start at the bottom and make your way up. Don't start at the top and work your way down, okay? Let's handle it at the lowest level possible, okay? All right, any questions on that? Now, this next thing here, discrimination, harassment, to me this is really, really important. I like to include something else, which they probably intend to, but I like to specifically say bullying, okay? Because we don't want discrimination, harassment, bullying, or anything like that happening. I've been here well more than 20 years, teaching most of the time in this classroom, and so far I have seen almost nothing that would even come close to these categories. Now, I can't guarantee it hasn't happened because people aren't stupid enough to do it in front of me, okay? If you see or sense that there's anything like discrimination, harassment, bullying going on, please let us know about it. It doesn't belong here, okay? We don't want it here. We want to deal with it. We want to deal with it fairly, but we want to deal with it quickly, nip it in the proverbial bud. And I give this as an example, though it doesn't fit in this category. It was within the first couple of years that I taught here, when we were at Sylvester State Technical College. We have a great automotive program, and I used to teach the automotive math, the automotive students, their math courses. And so I had big classes of them. Now, a lot of you are what I consider non-traditional students. You're not fresh out of high school, but whether you are or aren't, you're very mature, okay? Some of these kids were not always that mature, okay? And this one in particular wasn't. Most of the time they were very good attenders because if they didn't come to class, they didn't get their assistance that they did in the automotive program. They could be tossed out of this program. So this one kid missed a class. And he wasn't one of my best students anyway, but I did notice he was gone, but I thought maybe he's sick or something. That happens. But then he missed another. And after either the second or third time, I said, hey, where's this and so? He said, oh, you didn't hear? I said, no, what? He said, well, one day at lunch, he just decided to walk over people's cars in the parking lot. And someone saw him, jerked him down, got him to the dean's office. In a very short time, he was off campus and never seen again, okay? That's what I mean we like it. It doesn't belong here. We don't want it happening here. Now, that wasn't discrimination or harassment. That was just stupidity. But we didn't want that either. And so let us know. We deal with people fairly. We do all due process and all like that. But we do not want this to be a place where this is allowed. All right, the next topic here is also pretty important. As you already have heard, I'm hard of hearing, so I'm sort of sensitive to disabilities. If you have any kind of disability, it could be hearing, vision, it could be reading dyslexia, it could be any of those letters, HD, whatever, and stuff, any of those things, okay? If there's something we can do to help accommodate that disability, we want to do it. In this very class last fall, I had a student I believe was probably legally deaf. She had with her basically a court recorder who was typing everything I said so that that student could read it on the screen. We'll do whatever it takes to make sure you have every opportunity to get the best education you can. So let us know. I can't do this. We have people here who are trained. Dr. Renee Herndon, her office is on this campus, and it was on the board. Why did that happen? This makes no sense. Now it's coming back, I guess. Okay. But Dr. Renee Herndon on this campus, she's a honcho in charge of it. Mrs. Janine McCoy-Jones on the Birmingham campus also handles this. Let them know. Bring in the documentation. They will get word to us what we need to do to set up our classes so that you can have the best chance of getting what you need for the course. All right, here is the college calendar. I've referred to it a couple of times. Classes started today, and drop ad ends next Wednesday. For first mini-term classes only, the last day you can withdraw. Now, when it says withdrawal here, this isn't what I was talking about before. This is withdrawing from school. In other words, you signed up and then you find out your family's going to be moving. You can't complete the term. You got to withdraw completely. Or you come down with some illness or something else that's going to make it impossible for you to complete. The last day to withdraw from school completely and receive a partial refund is, what is that? Next Friday, isn't it? Yeah, I believe that's right. Okay? Now, that's because we're a mini-term class. If you're in a full-term class, that's a little bit longer, but you still need to do it for this one. Okay. Now, Monday, a week away, is Dr. Martin Luther King State holiday. Okay? Sort of a good news, bad news situation. The bad news is there's absolutely no classes that day, right? The good news is it doesn't affect us any. We meet Tuesday, Thursday, so we won't miss a class. Okay, but we're always happy to celebrate Dr. King's birthday. Okay? Now, here is the key I was talking about. The 60% completion date. Now, again, this is different from a full-term course. For this course, first mini-term course, that date is the 11th of February. Okay? If you withdraw from a class, not completely, not this withdrawal, but this one. If you withdraw from a class before this date, 11th of February, first mini-term class, you pay the money back. If you're on Pell Grant or Veterans or something else, you have to refund the money that they spent. If you wait until after this date, then you don't have to repay. But remember, mini-term classes, things happen really close, so just 2 weeks from that is the last date you can withdraw from period, and that means if you wait until after the 25th, you can't withdraw at all. But that's almost at the end of the time. The final exam for this class is March 3rd, and then we're into the second mini-term. So you have to, you don't have to, but in order not to owe money back. Now, if you're paying out of pocket, you can withdraw anytime you want to. It's not going to matter. But if you are accepting Pell Grant, then if you withdraw before this date on the first mini-term, you pay the money back. Okay? Keep that in mind. You have to withdraw by that day. So keep those things in mind. All right. And finally, there's a student acknowledgement form, which is at the very end of the syllabus. Had I run into anything I said I have to correct? Office hours or anything like that? Okay, so if everything's good, are there any questions? Yes? You'll have at least one test each week, I think. Not today, of course, but because we have 9 tests in 8 weeks, so it's going to come out at least one every week. There will be at least 1 week you'll have 2 tests, okay? Maybe 2 weeks because of the final exam. So anyway, it's going to come fast and furious. Please be here, okay? Please get as much as you can. Okay, any other questions?
Did you say there's already an assignment out there?
Okay, I can't hear you.
I said, did you say there's already an assignment out there now?
Oh yeah, the research paper assignment. I'll explain that. That's coming up too. Okay, it's out there already.
Since
Okay.
you went over, I'm sorry.
What's that?
Since you went over the syllabus, do you have a copy of that, that sheet right there, the student?
Okay, what you can do, you can either print this or you can email it to me. You don't have to have a paper. So yeah, the syllabus is out there available to you. You can either print this page or type it in and email it to me. Okay, good deal. Good question. All right, any others? So as soon as you get a chance, as long as you don't have any more, if you have any questions when you go through it on your own schedule and stuff like this, and you say, "Oh, I don't remember what he said about it." Any questions, ask me. Once you're satisfied, then sign that and get me the information. All right. All right, to exit the syllabus? Okay. Whoa, where did you go? That's not it. We're just supposed to exit the syllabus, not this. So I'm going to have to go back in. Yeah, this is a pain in the neck. Back in the Blackboard. Got to log back in again. This is sorry about this. This is one thing I don't like about Blackboard. It seems to be somewhat unstable. In fact, someone told me this week that we're basically beta testing it for Blackboard. They don't have all the kinks out of it yet. Okay. All right. We did the syllabus. The next thing listed on this, and this pretty much is how yours will probably look. You may not have this part over here. You may have something different there, but let's go to the locator card. This is so awkward. It should open up, but it doesn't, so I have to do this. You shouldn't be able to do that. I don't know how you get to it, but hopefully you'll figure it out. Y'all are better at this than I am. I'm a dinosaur. All right, it will open in a few minutes here. Any questions so far? Any question? Anything? Yeah.
With the new Blackboard, how do we get? Is it like the same? How do we get to the new Blackboard?
See, you're a student. I don't know, but most people that I've heard from who have gotten to it says it looks about the same way as before. I think you get to it the same way. But you see, I'm an instructor. I don't have the student side, so I have to go through it a different way. Has anyone been on it? The new one? You have. So it's pretty much the same way as before, right? Yeah. So it just looks different. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why this is such a pain in the neck or some other body part. Let me see. It'd be so much easier. That's it. It says it's there. Let's see. There it is. Okay. All right, here's my locator card. Basically, this is what I'll put on my door of my office so anyone can see where I am when I am. It's my name's there, Charles Fowler. My phone numbers. The first one's on the Bessemer campus. The last one's Friday's on the Birmingham campus. Email address is there, and I'm in the math department, even though this is natural sciences. Okay. So, whoa, this is not doing well. Okay, this is the first time it's done it like this all day long. I don't know why it's doing this. Okay, this is my whole week. Okay, I'm here every day, either on this campus or the other campus. I try to be here by 8 o'clock in the morning. Most days, a little before 8. If traffic or something else is bad, it may be a little after, but hopefully before. Okay, on Monday and Wednesday, I have office hours from 8 till 10, and I have Calculus 1, I have 45 minutes or less for lunch here, but I eat in my office, so you can come see me there. Calculus 3 here, and then differential equations here, and then I'm in the office from 3:30 until 4:45, until 6, 3:30, 3:45 until 6. I can't talk. 3:45 until 6. That's Monday. Wednesday, Tuesday and Thursday, they're the same. I'm here at 8 o'clock, but then I have a 8:30 class, Math 112, pre-calculus algebra, followed by pre-calculus trig, followed by linear algebra, and then a 30-minute lunch from 12:45 until 11:15. And that's all I got, so I try to cram down as much as I can. Then this class starts at 1:15 and goes till 5:45. Then I'll be leaving campus as soon after 6 as I can. Wednesday's a lot like Monday, except the 8 to 10 is still good. The classes are still the same. The difference is at 3:45, when I get out of my differential equations class, I'm packing up and heading to Birmingham East Campus. There I teach a physics class from 4:30 until 6:30, and I'll leave between 6:30 and 7. Thursdays just like Tuesdays, and then on Fridays I'm on the Birmingham West Campus Academic Building, B122. I'm there from 8 to 12. They say we have to put a lunch in there. Usually I don't eat a full lunch, but I have to put it in there, so there it is. That's the time to call when I'm in the office. Don't call when I'm in class. I won't ever hear the phone ring, and I'll probably never hear your message, so don't do that. Any questions on my locator card? Where I am, when I'm on campus, off campus, in class, out of class, that kind of stuff. Okay. Now, next is the research paper instructions. Again, I have to go here to do it. I can't tell you how to do yours because I don't know how yours does, but this is how I have to do it on mine. Hopefully you can't change my research paper instructions, okay? So it's sort of ridiculous that you would. Hopefully you don't. So here they are. You get to choose your topic. Hey. I'm sorry? I can't hear you. Second? Oh, a question. Okay. Let me pause this so it won't be dead space. Okay, now the thing is y'all have to we just finished going over the syllabus. However, I record everything in class when I remember to turn it on, okay? And so at the end of the, okay, a little bit of a timeout here, okay. This class, I will start uploading it as soon as class is over with. But then I will go home tonight, and hopefully it'll finish up uploading sometime then. If I get a chance, I'll put it into the playlist then, but it may be tomorrow before I get it done. In fact, there's a real good chance it may be tomorrow before I get it done. So don't expect the class always to be up there immediately. It won't be. A long class like this is going to take hours for it to upload to YouTube, and then it'll still be time. I have to have time to move it from YouTube to a playlist. So it'll probably be the next day for this class, just about always. Okay? So we'll see. If you notice how many classes I'm teaching, it takes me a while to get all those things done. Okay. But anyway, we went over the syllabus. You'll be able to go to Blackboard and see the syllabus. You'll be able to go to YouTube videos once I get it done and hear everything I said about the syllabus. Okay. This is the research paper journal instructions. You get to choose any topic that you choose. Okay? We're going to be covering astronomy. We're going to be covering geology. We're going to be covering earth science. We're going to be covering meteorology, weather, climate. We're going to cover Earth's waters, oceanography. You got a lot of topics you can choose from. Pick whatever is most interesting to you. You choose any topic within the scope of the course, and that could be a lot. We're going to be talking about several different people. Every chapter is going to have at least one focus on one particular person, and it'll have other people mentioned. So you're going to have a lot of people you can look at. It could be a theory. We're going to be talking about several theories. One of these is the theory of plate tectonics, the theory of the Big Bang theory. Okay? There's going to be lots of theories. You can pick any of those. Even if we don't talk about them, you can choose them. You can look at a phenomenon. Okay? Black holes, volcanoes, tornadoes. I mean, all these things are going to be covered in the course. Okay? So you can choose any phenomenon. You can choose an application. Okay? Let's think of something that might be an appropriate one there. How do you apply perhaps something like weather predictions to, your field of study or something like that? So, I mean, there could be just about any application you can choose, or any other such topic about which you have an interest that relates to physical science. Okay? Now, here's something else that I've added more recently. Or it can be an internet application or demonstration which you find useful to the class. I had one student, I think it was last fall, there was some movie she saw that really did a great job of visualizing a black hole. So she somehow got excerpts from the movie. She knew how to use computers well, and she came up with something like that. I mean, boy, she did a good job on it, too. She had to write about it, of course, but then she also reported on it and gave. So any internet application or demonstration, you might find something that someone describes how a star is formed, or how the planets, how volcanoes happen, anything such as that. You can write on that as well. Anything you find useful to the class. Now, something I'd like you to do either today or next week is write your name on a piece of paper and write the topic that right now you're thinking you might do. Because I want you thinking about it soon so you can start thinking, start looking for sources, and start moving that way. Okay? So you pick your topics, write your name and a topic on a piece of paper. Now, since you only have two things on a piece of paper, I'll let you write something else on that paper if you choose. It has nothing to do with the course or the research paper. But periodically I have someone coming to the door a lot like that student did. But I wouldn't do this for a student, but it'd be an administrator come to the door and say, "This and so is in your physical science class. We need to get in touch with them right away." Now, I don't know what it is, but it sounds important. The number that's in the system's not working. Do you have a more current number for it? And if I do, I can give it to them. Okay? Now, I won't do this for a student or anyone off the street or anywhere else. Only if someone here at the college that really needs to know, that information. So if you want to give me your very best current phone number, that's fine. You don't have to. If you choose to, you can. Now, my guess is most of you that would be a cell phone, right? But it could be that cell phone could get left in your book bag. It could be run over by a car. It could be the battery died, something could happen like that. If you want to give me your very best backup number as well, that's fine too, like Mama's landline or something like that. Or, if you happen to also work, and at your place that you work, they don't want you using your cell phone. They don't want you taking in incoming or outgoing calls, so you can't use it there. If you have a good work number that they will take emergency or important phone messages there, give me that number as well. So you don't have to give me any phone numbers. You can give me 1, 2, or up to 3. Can't think of anything more than 3 you can. So you can give me that as well. But I do need your name and your paper topic. Okay? Now, if you find out you want to change your paper topic, no problem. If you want to expand it, no problem. If you want to contract it, no problem. But give me something so you can start working on something now. Okay? You'll need to find at least one, but 2 or more are better, outside sources for your paper. Now, like I already mentioned, every chapter focuses on some person or other topic or something like that in your book. That can't be your source for your paper. That's an inside source. You need to have an outside source, something not in this course. Okay, that could be something like a book, a journal, an article, newspaper, magazine, anything that you could find in the library, Or it could be any legitimate, now underline that, legitimate source found on the internet. So much of what's on the internet is total garbage. So if you have any doubts about the validity of the source, run it by me. And I'll say, hey, I've never heard that before. I've never heard of this person before. I'm not sure this is legitimate. Or I'll say, oh yeah, I've seen that in several other places. It's perfectly fine. Okay? So, be careful about the internet, but you can use that as your source. The textbook, however, is a great source of ideas, but it's not a source for your paper. You can get the ideas for your paper out of the textbook. You can even get names and places and theories and stuff like that, but you have to go outside the book for your outside sources. Okay, your paper has to be at least one word process page of text. Now, several things are involved in that. I don't want them handwritten. I don't want them even typewritten. I want them word processed, okay? And when I say at least one word process page of text, here's what I mean. Of text, there's the key. If you use a format that has some sort of header at the top and stuff, and then you go down and you put the title, then you triple space, and you start typing right here. What is one page of text? That's going to go to the bottom of this page, and then start at the top of the second page and come down at least that far. So it's going to be at least two pieces of paper. You can't get away with anything less than one piece of paper. I mean, with only one, okay? But you're going to have, that's going to be at least one page of text, okay?
You said,
now,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You said word process.
Word processed, yeah.
And it has to be one.
No, at least one page. If it's less than a page of text, in other words, you can fit it all on one piece of paper, that's not one page of text. It's going, the text starts here, goes down. I don't count the other thing. It goes down at least that far on the second piece of paper. Okay? Now, I do want you to double space. This is single space, so this would be more than what's required. I do want you to double space. Now, I want you to use a standard pitch or point font. I don't want it 9 pitch or something like that I can hardly read. Neither do I want it 26 point, so 4 words fill up a page and you say I'm through. No, that won't work either. Okay, so keep it 12, standard. Okay? I don't care what font you use as long as I can read it. Don't get fancy on me with curly Q's in Old English or Cyrillic or something like that. Greek, I don't read that. Keep it something clear, clean, and stuff. A lot of the, default fonts are Times New Roman. Perfectly fine. I happen to use Arial for this one. Courier, there's just tons of really great fonts, easy to read. You pick one of those. Now, it has to be at least one page of text. Try to keep it less than 2 pages. Not because I don't want to read it, it's just because I don't want it to be a big burden to you. However, if you pick a topic and you get so excited about it and it spills over the 3 or 4 or 5 pages, if you're that excited about it, I want to read it. Okay, so that's fine. If it's too short, you're going to lose points. There's no direct penalty for being too long. And the reason I phrase that this way is because, okay, now I've been doing this, like I said, way more than 20 years. So I've been having people turn in papers for very close to, if not more than 20 years. And I've had anywhere from 4 to 8 classes. Why does this keep blinking out? Yeah, okay. I don't know what's wrong with this system. There it is. Okay. So I've seen an awful lot of papers. Okay, most classes are about this size, average, okay? Some smaller, some bigger, okay? So I've seen a lot of papers. I've only had this happen 2 or 3 times that I suspected it happening. Somebody decided they were going to replace quality with quantity. In other words, well, I'm not going to write a very good paper, but I'll make it really long and impress them with it. Not going to work, okay? Here's why. When you turn in that paper to me, it's a 100-point paper. Then I start reading it, And if I find errors, you start losing points. So if you replace quality with quantity, it means you're going to have lots of errors, but you start losing points. And the longer it is, the more points you lose if it's a really sloppy paper. So don't do a sloppy paper. If you do a good paper, it can be as long as you want it to be. Okay? I'll enjoy reading it. But if you're just trying to impress me with its length, that's not going to be impressive at all.
Okay, well, Dr. Fowler, what are you looking for, like, your subject matter you want us to talk about?
Okay? Now, let's see if this answers the question. Okay? If it doesn't, I'll come back to that. Okay? Now, before I get to that, though, let me finish this one. I don't care what format you use. Most English classes teach MLA, Modern Language Association format. A lot of organizations use APA, which is American Psychological Association. They came up with a great format very early. Everybody liked it. A lot of people copied it. That's fine with me, too. I've been a member of many professional organizations. Seems like every one of them has their own format. I don't care what format you use. Just be consistent. For instance, if you start blocking paragraphs, block all your paragraphs. So if this answers part of your problem, okay? I don't want to be reading along here in Arial and then suddenly it changes to Times New Roman here. Wait, there's no reason to do that. Be consistent. That type of thing. Now, spelling, grammar, sentence structure, all those things that would lose you points on an English class, don't lose your points here too. Probably not as heavily as English would, but basically what I'm asking for you is a product, a good product. Anything less than a good product, you're going to have some things lost. So, be sure, use spell check. Just about every word processing package has it, use it, okay? Most of them have grammar check. Use it, okay? If any of you are in an English class and you have that, what do they call it? That package you can run your papers through. Second? It may. Second? Criteria, exactly. If you want to use that, it's fine with me. I don't care. Use whatever you have available to you to give me a good product. Okay? So, now, content also matters. This answers, I think, the second part of your question. Most of what you choose to write on, I'm going to have some cursory knowledge on. And if you write something that's totally wrong, I'll probably pick up on that. Let me give you just a few kind of dumb examples. I've had a lot of papers, because of other things, on, say, Isaac Newton. Now, he doesn't really apply to this class. People love to write on him. He's a person, perfectly fine. Okay? And I've had them at the very beginning of the paper, but when they first mentioned his name, and I don't require this, but they did, they put in parentheses the year of his birth, the year of his death. That's pretty standard. A lot of people do that. But then on page 2 or 3, they had him die in a different year than he had him here. Hey, something's wrong there. Or they mistyped it and had him doing something in 1943 when it should have been 1493. Okay, I can pick up on most of that. In my math classes, a lot of times people write on things like Pythagorean theorem, and sometimes write it completely wrong. So content matters too, and most of the time I'll pick up on those. If you have inconsistencies, you'll lose points for those too. Okay. Now, the paper is due technically on the last day of class of this mini term. Okay? Now, I don't recommend you wait until then to do it. Okay? That's why I'm asking you to write down, pick a source already. Start working on it. Start looking for those resources. Okay? Because you'll never have more time to do your paper than you do right now. How many already have projects or tests or quizzes coming up? You do already? But not too many. In a week or two, you're going to have more. Okay? Get started now. Now, like I say, I've read a lot of papers over these 20-some-odd years. Okay? And here's a gross generalization, but it's typically true. Usually the papers that come in early in the term are some of my best papers. And as the term goes on, sort of it seems like they kind of go downhill. And a lot of times some of the worst papers I get are those that someone, oh, I forgot my research paper, and turn it in without even proofing it. And there'll be a lot of spelling errors and other things, so I get a lot of really lousy papers at the end. Now, I've had some dogs at the beginning, and I've had some good papers at the end, but the general trend is downhill. So please get started early and get it and produce me a good paper. Okay? Now, that's kind of the, if you turn it in late, you're going to lose points. So those are kind of the sticks. Let me give you the carrots. Okay? If you turn in your paper in the month of January, you'll automatically receive 2 bonus points. So if you make a 93 on the paper, it becomes a 95. Okay? You'll get 2 free points. If you turn it in the month of February, you get 1 free point. Okay? In March, that's the end of the term. Okay? Of the mini term. So try to get it to me. The sooner the better. Okay? Now here's something I require that I don't know that I've heard of anyone else require. But when you submit your paper, I want you to print me or copy me a single page from one of your sources. Now remember, you got 2 or more sources, or 1 or more sources. Pick a source, any source, either one of them, any one of the 3 or 4. I don't care. Pick a source and pick me 1 page from that source. I don't need the whole source. I don't need a page from every source. A single page from 1 source. Turn that in with your paper. Okay? All right.
All of this is on
Yes.
Blackboard, correct?
I'm sorry?
All of this is on Blackboard, correct?
Yeah, this is on Blackboard. Yeah. Yes.
When you were to take paper in early and like then you grade wanted on it, could we redo it or
Okay. So in other words, you want me to grade every paper twice?
no?
No, I don't really want to do that. So give it your best shot. I'll grade it. Okay. But the earlier the better. Okay. And I am a human being, and usually those papers I get early in the term where I'm not rushed, and crowded and stuff like this. Usually I feel a lot better when I'm grading those, and usually the scores are a little better. And those that come in crowded at the end, and I'm not in a good mood, sometimes the grades just don't come out as well. I don't know why, but no, I'll try not to be biased that way, but I can't. Never mind. Okay, I shouldn't have done that. All right. Any questions on the research paper? Yes.
This is like turned in, like handed to you, but not submitted through Blackboard.
Okay, that's a very good question. I know some of your classes probably do submit things through Blackboard. I haven't got anything set up to do that, but I have had people say, "Can I email you your paper?" And here's how I answer this every time. And the same thing would hold through Blackboard. I grade what I receive. And I'm being honest here. I have received things through email that when I printed them, I went, I know they don't think it looked like this. Okay, they forgot to fix your justification and they have everything center justified. That's not good. Okay, but they were looking at the screen and didn't notice that. But if they had printed it, they would have noticed that, I think. So you can send it to me any way you want to, but I grade what I get. So if you want to make sure that what I'm going to be grading is what you think I'm going to be grading, it's a good idea to print it. But if you do need to email it, that's fine too. So I don't know. I weaseled around that answer, but you get what I'm talking about. Okay.
And you're saying that you can choose any subject out of this book?
That what?
Any subject out of this book is okay?
Anything that relates to physical science
Okay.
and any of these topics. Astronomy, earth science, geology, meteorology, weather, climate, oceanography, anything that relates to what we'll be studying here. It can be far-fetched, but still be perfectly fine. Okay? Any others? Let me give you one example that just happened to pop in my head. We do talk about volcanoes in one of these chapters. I don't remember which one it is. Okay? Earth science. Okay? Shaping the Earth's Surface, whatever chapter that is. And one of the blurbs in here mentioned Mount Pinatubo, which erupted in the Philippines somewhere back in the 1980s or so. Well, I happen to have a student in my class who was born in the Philippines. She knew exactly where Mount Pinatubo was, and she remembered hearing either her parents or someone talk about that eruption. She chose to write on that. The book didn't make a big deal about it. It did mention it, but that was a great paper because she really related to it. I'm not saying she wrote that well, but it was great that she chose that as her paper topic. So anything that relates to what we're doing here, that might be one of those application type things. So yeah, you get to choose your topic. Just have it loosely connected with what we've been doing. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right, good deal. Now, okay. All right. Any other questions about research paper? And if you have any, please ask. I mean, anytime in the future, ask. Run it by me. When you turn in your paper topic, if you say, I may actually say to you, ooh, this is a big topic. You may want to narrow this down, or you can write on the whole thing. Or you may have found it hard to get enough information here. You may want to expand this a little bit. But again, you can do whatever you want to with it. Okay. Now, I happened to think of a couple other things when we were on break, and now I've forgotten them. Okay. I know one of them. Remember I said I usually don't cancel classes. There is a possibility coming up, and it may not be this first mini-term, so I don't know for certain. But this week I turned 69 years old. That means 1 year from today I will be over 70 years old. And that means I will be ready to retire. Okay? So in the teacher retirement system, they like you to go to one of these retirement seminars anywhere in your last 5 years. Well, I put it off until now, so I need to go to one of these, and every one of those are offered either on a Wednesday or a Thursday. So it's a 50-50 shot. I may wind up, and it's an all-day thing. So that may be a day.
Yeah, you might want to take them on Thursday.
Wow, I have someone watching out for my credibility here. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that advice. Okay.
Right.
Now, so there may be a day I miss, and I hate missing days, but that's a full day event, and they're usually not local either. I may have to go to Tuscaloosa, which is a nice town. Okay. Now, I mentioned the YouTube videos. That's the next thing that shows up here in the syllabus. Let me just show you how these work. Now, this one I know that all you do is click on the icon, okay? And then it goes straight to the YouTube video. It may take a while, but it does. Here's what it looks like, okay? A couple of terms ago, we had these. Okay. Now, what I've done, last fall, this is where we started. Physical Science 111 Syllabus. That will be the exact title of the one I do for today. But what I'll do, when I type that in, then I'll go into YouTube and take this one out. What I do, I'll leave all these in here. So everyone, here's chapter 14 and 15, beginning of 15. Here's chapter 16. These got out of order somehow, but there's chapter 15, chapter 16. You'll see I label each one, and that's where we started the class that day. Okay? Now, why do I leave the old ones in there?
Just in case somebody misses it.
Say again?
Just in case somebody misses a class.
Yes. What if the system goes down? What if, if something happens, you'll still have at least something close to what we did in this class the previous time. So you'll always have something you can look at. You're absolutely right. Okay? So they'll all be in there, but I'll take off this one once I put the one in. The new stuff is always going to be at the bottom. This is the old stuff at the top. Okay? So if you want to look for the most recent class, go to the bottom. Now, if it hasn't gotten loaded yet, you won't see it yet, but this one will still be in there. Does that make sense? All right. Good deal. So I did want to let you know those two things. Well, that, okay. So that's how you get it. And they're right there for your viewing pleasure. Okay. So I'll get out of this. Now, here are a few other things that I put on Blackboard. I think a student sent these to me, and I liked them so much I put them on Blackboard. These are Hubble pictures. Does anyone know what I mean by Hubble pictures? The Space Telescope. It's been up there for decades now, and it had some really incredible views. And for some, I know. Okay. I don't know if I mentioned this before. This indicates it's a document. This indicates it's a web link. You see the link in the chain? This indicates this is a folder. So on folders, you go over here, and you can't see it now because I just clicked on it. Let me go back. Okay, let me scroll down. Okay, there's a folder. When I click on this, it opens up the folder, and here are the various photographs. Now, these are just pretty pictures, but they were so incredible, I decided to put them out here. There's one, and you'll actually see something like this there. Just incredible photographs. Nothing you're responsible for, just incredible photographs, okay? Taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. By the way, we'll be talking about Edwin Hubble. He's a potential paper topic. The Hubble Space Telescope, how they put it together. Anything like that could be paper topics, okay? There's 10 of these pictures there. They were just incredible pictures. I just found them beautiful, so I put them out there, okay? I'll close that folder, and here is another thing a student sent me, Space Objects in Perspective. Okay, now I'm going to click on that, and it gives me this. It should open it up. I don't know why it doesn't. I have to come and do this. If you find you can't open them, I've got to find out why it's not working right. Okay? And this is a series of things, and it's pretty incredible. I'll refer to this when we get to it in class, but it's Space Objects in Perspective. I won't go through the whole thing now, but just to show you. I don't know. My computer is doing really weird things today. Here it is. If that's the Earth, this is Mars. There's Mercury, there's Venus, Pluto, which is not a planet anymore, we're talking about, there's Venus. And it just goes through and pictures the Earth compared to other objects. And it's really incredible because this one shows, and I won't go through all these, but just to give you an idea, those are basically the 4 inner planets, which are the smallest planets. Here are the all the planets, okay? This is Jupiter, Saturn without the rings, Uranus and Neptune, almost the same size. Here's Earth then, there's Venus, there's, and this is Pluto on this scale. And it keeps going scale after scale after scale. And here is when you put the sun in the picture. Here's the size of the sun compared to Jupiter, to Saturn, to Uranus and Neptune. I can't remember which order. There's Earth right there. That's how big we are compared to the sun. It's pretty incredible. And it keeps going. And you'll find out that the sun is one of the average sized stars. So you look at some of the other stars. Here's Arcturus, which is one of the bigger stars. It's called the red giant. Pollux, Sirius. There's the sun. Okay? Jupiter is about 1 pixel. One of these tiny little pieces there. And the Earth you wouldn't even be able to see. And it just keeps going from there. Galaxies and other things. I just found it an incredible representation. And so you can look at the whole thing if you want to. It's pretty nice, okay? A student sent it to me. I said, look, that's good enough. I'm going to put it out here. So that was Space Objects in Perspective. Here, finally, are your PowerPoints. And again, this is a folder. You see the folder symbol. So you go here and open it up. And then here's Chapter 14 PowerPoint, 15, 16. All those PowerPoints are there. So they'll be there in static form here. You can print them out, you can write them, you can do whatever you want to, but then if you wait until I lecture on them, or even go and look at last term, I'm going to close this up again. Once they're in the YouTube videos, you can see me and hear me talk about them. Same PowerPoints, but I write on them and that kind of stuff. All right, that's pretty much the new Blackboard. And that's all we're going to cover in the class. Any questions on any of this? Yes? I've been told by other students the same way you did the previous Blackboard. Okay? And see, I'm not a student, so I can't answer that specifically because I do it through the faculty side. I don't know how to do it through the student side. But other students said it's the same way. No difference. Okay. So that's your introductory stuff. There's one other thing we need to talk about before we get into physical science. Okay? Like I told you, this is sort of like the lab part now, then we'll do the class part as soon as we finish. And some of you have been in my class before, you probably know what I'm going to talk about. What's that last thing we have to talk about? Safety. Okay? Safety. I'm going to go on and get out of Blackboard now just to get out. I don't have anything, I don't have any visuals on this, so I'll just do talking. There's 3 areas of safety I want everybody always to at least have thought about, so if something happens, you don't have to say, oh, what do we do? We know what to do. Can anyone think of one of the 3? Say again? Yeah, bad weather. And guess what, folks? Has anyone heard what's happening Saturday? Bad weather. We're in tornado season already. I can't imagine being in early January and already having severe weather threats. And yet they're here. So what do we do if we hear that alarm go off, the siren go off? What do we do? Yes? Lowest floor. Excellent. And what?
Near the center.
Yes, interior lowest. You get them both perfect there. Now, how do we do it from here? Well, here we are in this classroom right here. Okay, you go out the door here, hang the left, go down this half flight of stairs here, right over there, and then take an immediate left and go down one more flight. You're now close to the lowest level you can be in this building. Okay? You can go down just a couple more steps once you get down there because the first floor looks a lot like this, but it has just a couple more steps going down. Right in front of you there are restrooms. Now you see, now this is the exterior of the building. You don't want to be there. You want to be interior. Lowest level, interior. Right in front of you are the restrooms. Now believe it or not, the restrooms are a pretty safe place to be. And here's why. Anytime you have a corner, you have a lot more strength in that building than you do on an open wall or in the middle. Yes?
I'm not being funny, but I kind of survived the tornado. And bathroom isn't the really safest place because my friend, her mom died in the bathroom. They were in the tub, and she was standing up. She was trying to get to the tub, and the sink kind of blew up and caved in her chin. So that's not the safest.
Yeah. There are exceptions to every rule, okay? But the general rule is if you have close walls and corners, there's more strength in a building that way. Sure, things can happen. Bad things do happen. You can get killed anywhere, okay? But usually lowest level, interior, and where the walls are close together. Now, if you're going to be down there for a couple of hours, maybe the bathroom isn't the best place you'd like to be. And especially this, if there is inclement weather, there's a real good chance we're going to lose power. And if you lose power, you're in the dark in the bathroom, and that's another place you may not like to be, in the dark in a bathroom. So you may not choose that as a place, but it usually is not an unsafe place to be. Next to the restroom, down on the first floor, there is the dean's office. Okay? Now, usually that's locked up, but if someone's in there, the door's unlocked, again, you're close walls and a lot more support. Now, here's the thing about this building, too. Down on the first floor, which is directly under this, there is nothing over here. On this side of that, there is soil. I mean, that is as strong a wall as you can have. Because it's not freestanding, it's got soil behind it. So it is going to be pretty. So the dean's office is not a bad place to be. Don't break into it, but if someone's in there and invite you in, that's okay. Next to that, you have the classroom 160. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. It's the developmental math classroom. Now, that's a fairly safe room because it's interior. That back wall is right against the soil there, so really strong there. You have 4 corners in it, but you have a lot of open space. Open space is usually not as safe as near a wall. Okay, now, using your same exception there, I heard there was a tornado in Piedmont, Alabama a few decades ago, and students were in the gym, so they got against the wall because they heard it was safe, and the gym and the tornado knocked the wall down on top of it. So it wasn't safe. But usually the wall is safer than the middle of the thing. So there's always exceptions. So the wall's usually safer, corner is safer than a straight wall, middle of the room, there's less support there. Okay? So that room is not a great room, but it's plenty of room in there, not a bad place to be. Right next to that, you go through the glass doors going into the library, and right inside that is a computer lab, which is a much smaller space in the classroom, so the walls are closer together. That's pretty safe. Okay? Just past that is what I call the reference room, and that's where the loads and the atlases and things like that. So that's a pretty safe room. Again, you're against that back wall. Okay. Don't go any past that because after that, you're in the exterior spaces. You're where there's windows. You do not want to be near a window where glass, something could come flying in the window and you can get cut off. So that's about it. Now, the last place I'll mention is a pretty safe one too. That's the hallway. Now, we happen to have math meetings up in Athens, Alabama, just several years ago, and the keynote speaker had just gotten less than 5 minutes into his presentation, and the sirens went off. And we actually had to go across the street, which was not a good thing, but down to the basement of the next building. Our building didn't have a basement, that one did, and we were in the hallway. The hallways are usually pretty good for a couple of reasons. Number one, the walls are fairly close together, more so than in the classroom. You don't have any corners there, but still they're close together. But here's the big advantage of a hallway. Emergency light. If that power does go off, most of the hallways have emergency light. And generally, if we have a severe weather, you're going to lose power. So that's where we go. You're exactly right. You go lowest level, interior. Okay? Any interior space. Now, when you get down there, we'll all go down there. Now, please, don't say, oh man, my dog's outside, I need to get home and get her in. No, dogs have enough sense to take care of themselves most of the time. Okay? The worst place you can be is on the road. Do not try to get on the road during severe weather. Any kind of severe weather. It doesn't have to be a tornado. Any severe weather, you don't want to be on the road. Okay? Let's get this too. All of you look pretty healthy right now. Okay? But it could be that it happens to be on the day we hear that siren that we need to go downstairs. Maybe someone has just twisted a knee or sprained an ankle or something like that. Well, I'm going to be helping that slowest person that's in the room get down there. So I'm going to be the last person down there. But when I'm going to take my roll book and I'm going to call roll. And if we can't account for everyone that's in the class, then someone's got to go upstairs, fearing that you may have gone to the restroom, you may have gotten lost, you may have been out on the telephone, and we got to find you. And someone's going to risk their life or health looking for you. So stay together initially until we account for everybody. Once we've accounted for everybody, then if you want to mix and mingle, that's perfectly fine. So stay together, okay? And I won't be leading you, I'll be following you, because I want to make sure everybody's got it. All right, so there's one, severe weather.
Fire.
Fire, okay? Now I'm going to include something else with fire. Things like chemical spill or stuff like that. Something that happens in the building, you don't want to be in the building, okay? What do we do then? Get out of the building. Very good. Well, how's the best way out of the building? Well, again, you go out the door here. Oh, wait. Let me back up. Okay. Okay, let me back up. Let's take worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, the fire happens in this room. Say my computer explodes and it starts setting all my papers on fire and stuff like this. What do we do?
Try to put it out.
Say again?
Try to put it out.
Okay, how do you put it out?
The fire extinguisher.
Where is closest fire extinguisher?
Probably in the hallway.
Okay, in the hallway. And let me show you how close it is. Okay. From where I'm standing, it's about 6 feet away. You can't get much closer to the fire extinguisher. So one person goes out there, and I know some of you guys have always thought, man, I really love to break that glass. You know, what would that be like? Yeah. Maybe not, but maybe. Okay. But anyway, you finally get to do that. So someone goes out there and gets a fire extinguisher. Okay? Now, what else do we do? Say again?
What'd you say?
What else do we do besides get a fire extinguisher?
Let the fire out.
And do what? Leave?
Let
Is
the
that what I heard?
fire out, like spray.
Yeah, and we put the fire out with the fire
You
extinguisher.
gonna
Yeah.
do that, right?
I'll do that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
To the closest
And say again? And let the rest of the people in the building start smelling smoke and say, what is going on? Oh, what do we need to do?
Tell everybody.
Fire alarm. Where is the closest fire
I'm pulling them
alarm?
Hallway beside the signature.
Okay, anyone know where the closest fire alarm is? Guess what?
This-
Everything you see here, there is not a single fire alarm.
What?
Because this is the old part of the building that was built before fire alarms were required. Okay? So what you have to do, and I suggest 2 people do this. Don't do it by yourself. Somebody goes out, one person getting that fire extinguisher that's right there. The other person goes down, out the door here, hang a left, go down that half flight of stairs, but go to this corridor here, just past the restroom that goes across the financial services. That's the newest part of this building. On that part, they do have fire alarms. Yeah, if you go through that building, yeah, you're actually closer to fire. Okay? Oh, you want to break the glass. Okay. I could tell somebody was in here wanting to break that glass. So you go and pull the fire alarm. Okay, so we got the extinguisher, so I'm trying to put out the fire. Somebody's gone down to pull the fire alarm so everybody else knows to get out of the building. And then we proceed to get out of the building. How do we do that? Same way we did before. Okay? Go out the door here, hang a left, go down the half flight of stairs, then go down, hang another left. Now, the fire extinguisher, fire alarm is over here. You can either turn this way or this way. You'll get a fire alarm in either place, okay? Within sight of that double door there. So then you proceed back out of the building and go down this other flight of stairs here, and then go out of the building, not in. Okay? For severe weather, you go in here. Fire, you go out. Now, when you go out of the building, head directly away from the building. Don't go along the building because there could be explosions inside, glass flying outside. You don't want that to happen. Now, where do you go from here? They used to say 75 feet out into the green space there. Now they actually say this, and here's the illustration of it. From both this end of the building where we are and this end of the building, we go down to that parking lot right there at Ethel Hall. Go down as a group, stay in the group, that parking lot. Okay? And again, I'm going to be the last one out, right? I'm either putting out the fire or being with whoever the slowest person is. I'm the last one out of here. Okay? And I'm taking my roll book, and I'm going to call roll. If we're missing anybody, say, hey, the building's on fire, no more school today, I'm out of here. Get in the car and go home, and nobody knows that. What do we have to assume? That you're still in the building. And then somebody has to go back into a burning building to try to look for someone who didn't do what they belonged to do. So please stay together as a group until we get the roll call and we hear what the plans are. They may not want you on the road because they only want the fire trucks to be able to get in here without meeting other traffic. They'll let us know. We'll be safe out there. Okay? We're far enough from the building, there won't be any problem. So that's what we do in case of fire. Yes?
In my elementary school, we didn't have like that interior area. So what they did is put us in the hallway. Here's the thing about the hallway. It's solid,
Concrete.
concrete walls, but, the roof is wooden with glass in it.
Right.
So, even if you put it in the hallway, it doesn't stop the wind taking the roof off.
Okay, you're talking about bad weather now, or you're talking about fire?
Come on, Tony.
Tornado.
Come on.
Right, yeah.
That's what I stood with.
If something's gonna happen to a tornado, the roof is probably gonna come off. You're right. That's why you get lowest level, so you have as many floors as possible between you and the missing roof.
Here's the problem. My school was built, it doesn't have a base, and
Right.
then it's like this. The hallways are wrong.
Right.
It's like a heated room.
Yeah.
That's how the hallway.
Okay, this is some other place, not here though, right?
Right. I'm just saying, what people do, are they in that kind of situation?
Again, all I can say is for severe weather, lowest level as far interior as you can. And stay safe and stay secure. Again, anything can happen anywhere. Bad news, it can happen. But that's the best thing. Lowest level, interior, fire, get out of the building. But you warn everybody else first. If we hear the fire alarm, we go out of the building. We don't have to worry about fire extinguishers. We don't have to worry about fire alarm. Someone's already taken care of that. Now, here's the other thing. If you know the fire, and you're going to do the fire, and someone mentioned this about the police, right? Somebody also do 911. Well, actually, the best thing to do, most of the doorways coming into this building, I've seen a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper on it with numbers for the police on Bessemer and Birmingham counties. Okay? Get those numbers, put them in your cell phone as your emergency number. And then if something, like if the fire started in here, while we're doing everything else, somebody dial that number and tell police what's happening. Okay? They'll hear the alarm go off, but they won't know where it is. Okay? So someone get on the thing and do it. Now, with inclement weather, everybody hears the alarm, you know what to do. But with a fire, someone get on there, especially if we know where the fire is, and tell the police where it is, so that way they can direct the emergency people. So I didn't think of saying that, but it needed to. All right, so there we have outside threat, severe weather, inside threat, fire, or chemical spill, something like that. What's the third safety issue?
Shooters.
Yes, active shooters. You know, a few years ago, I never would have even thought of saying anything about this. Things have gotten so crazy, you have to think of this. What do we do in case we hear the pop, pop, pop?
Probably in this corner.
Say again?
You're probably
Turn the lights off.
Yeah. Okay. Y'all are all thinking in the right direction here. Okay? Now, here's what we do. Now, number one, you will hear it before I will because I'm hard of hearing. So please tell me, that sounds like gunfire. Okay? As soon as you say that, here's what we do. Now, yes, this classroom, fortunately, I have a key. Okay? It's one of these keys right here. But the trouble is, I can't lock the door from inside. Outside is locked in. Don't you pull the door to. I want to come back in. Okay? I want to come back in, and then we pull it in. Okay?
So you can lock it while it's open, and then you just come back in.
Yes,
Lock it.
exactly. Okay. So number one, I get the door. Okay? Okay. Now I come back in and we close the door.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Now, next. This door does have buttons here on the plate, and I can lock it, but that locks from the inside, not from the outside. Don't do that. He can come in, we can't get out. Okay? So don't do that. Okay? Now, the door right here, it has a deadbolt. I don't have a key for that. Sorry.
Oh, Lord.
Okay,
Don't
hang
do
on.
this long.
Hang on. This next door here.
How many doors?
Okay, y'all listening? Not the inside. So that's the one that's locked. Pressing the button.
How many doors is there over there?
Okay, then there's the door to the classroom. If that's unlocked, you can't do anything about it. I don't have to figure it out. but we can lock that third door here. So what we do once we lock it, we close this door. Why? Because there's glass there. He can see in. We don't want him seeing in. And then we'll close this door too. Okay. And what else do we do? This is what, yeah. Okay. What we typically said at the beginning, right back there is the safest place to be. Because guess what? He can fire through the glass. He can fire through the glass and hit people. So you don't want anybody in sight here. Okay? He can even maybe fire through this grate or here, and that may be a little bit of a problem. He's going to have a hard time firing through a concrete block wall. If he tries, it's going to go back on him. So we all get over here, out of sight, and very quiet. Okay, now here's the other thing, folks. Every one of you turn off your cell phone. We don't want that going off. Say, hey, I heard there's a shooting there. And, yeah, you just got a shot. You know. No, turn off your cell phone, please. Now, if we happen to be the first one to see the fire coming out of the thing, we call 911. The lights are off on here at first. So we turn off our cell phones, we get very quiet, the lights are off, the doors are locked, we are as still as we can be. Now, I hope this won't ever come to this, but if it does, like I said, I'm 69, okay? Most of my life is back here, behind me, okay? Most of your lives are up here in front of you. Don't be a hero, okay? Do whatever they say or anything else, but if there's anything that needs to be done, let me do it. I was in the military. I'm not sure that prepared me for anything like this, but at least let me be the one, okay? And don't be the hero. Just get as safe as you can be, okay? And actually, we're safer here than many places. I teach over on the Birmingham East Campus. Those doors don't have any locks to them. I don't have a key to them. The walls are sheetrock. They're not concrete block. Yeah, it's not a good situation, okay? And I've told them what we do is take all the tables we can get and line them up against the door and jam things in so he can't get in, okay? Now, I keep saying he. Most of the shooters are he. There's been a couple that have been female, but most of them have been he wackos, you know. So anyway, all right. That cover it? Any questions on any of the safety issues? The only reason I mention this is so you can think ahead and know if something does happen, you can act and not have to. What do I do now? Yeah.
How many people can fit over there?
What's that?
How many people can fit over there?
I mean, we can make it fit. Okay. Get out of sight of the door. And you get quiet. Believe me, folks, the quietness is the thing. If the lights are off and the doors are locked, the assumption is it's not worth him wasting his time to try to break into an empty room. So we get out of sight. That's the key. Out of sight. And if it's not all in that corner, line up along this wall, just so you're out of sight of this. Huh?
I said they go through the many doors.
Go through the what?
All those doors.
Many doors.
Yeah, he's going to have a hard time doing that. Okay. Now here is the weakest link in this system, though. If we can't lock the hall door coming in there, even though we lock that next door there, it has a glass window there. He can shoot through that, unlock the door. I can't lock the next one, he can come in. But if we're really quiet, why is he going to waste all that effort doing that to get to an empty room? Okay? So that's why we're quiet, and we're silent, and we're praying a lot. Okay? Yeah. So, all right. Any questions? All right. That's safety. That's all the preliminary. Aren't you ready to get started in physical science? Oh, yeah. All right. Let's get started in physical science. Okay. Let me see. All right. Any questions before we get started? What's that? You need another break? Okay. Let's keep it less than 5 minutes then, folks. Please keep it less than 5 minutes. Oh, and by the way, I meant to tell you this too. Remember, this class has a class and a lab every day. And what that means is I have to call roll twice. I call roll at the beginning for the class, and because I have to mark the roll for lab as well, I have to call roll after 3:45. And if we take a break now, it's going to be 3:45. When we come back, I'll be calling roll again, and that's going to be, I have to enter attendance both for class and lab. Whether we have a lab or not, I have to enter it that way. So I will be calling roll when we get back from break. Finish this countdown. We are now recording. Let's go from current slide. And here we go. Now, yes? I'm sorry? Should we take notes? Is that the question? Yeah, whatever you like. Okay? It's completely up to you. Know that the PowerPoints are all out there on Blackboard, so you can access those. So anything else you want to do, you can. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about this picture. Now, the first chapter, chapter 14, remember, State of Alabama starts in the middle of the book for the first physical science, and then it goes to the first of the book for the second physical science. So we're starting with the universe, starting big, and then we'll work our way down. Okay? Now, you might wonder what in the world that is. We'll be talking about this later in this chapter. I'll just give you a clue here. This is called a planetary nebula. Okay? Now, we're going to see the term nebula in other places. And it's going to be talking about something not quite the same as this. And we'll talk about planets in other places, but that's not talking about the same thing here. What this is the end of a giant star and what we call a supernova. We'll talk about this later in this chapter. Okay? And what has happened here, the star met the end of its life, and what happens when it does, it gets unstable, and basically it blows up. And the gases are what you see moving outward here, but this is covering such a huge range, they're moving very fast, but because it's such a big area and so far away, it looks like it's moving slowly. What you see in the middle here is what remains of that star, and this is probably what they call a white dwarf. Again, we'll be hitting this term later. But anytime you see a planetary nebula like this, now where is planetary coming from? It's anything that circles a star, goes around the star as a planet. So that's why they call it a planetary nebula. Nebula is a mass of gases, okay? So basically that's what we've got. The gases are flying off into space, and what's left in the center is the white dwarf. Now these other things that you see here, those are other stars or galaxies somewhere else that don't have anything to do with this, but that's your planetary nebula. If you look in your text, if any of you have that, you'll see something that looks sort of similar to this, but you don't see the white dwarf in the middle. It probably is there, just sort of buried under other color. All right, now, but still on that first page in your text, I know a lot of you don't have your text yet. One person does, okay? But if you don't have it yet, the next slide here is the core concept, which is on that first page. The core concept is the night sky is filled with, now you may not realize this, literally billions of stars. Now if you go out there tonight and look in the sky, if you could count them all, you wouldn't get up to 1 billion. Okay? And there's several reasons for that. And we'll talk about it. But it still doesn't mean they're not there. It's filled with billions of stars, and our sun is an ordinary star. It's average size, average brightness, average everything. There are half of the stars out there are way bigger than our sun, way hotter than our sun, way brighter than our sun. But why in the world does our sun look so bright? It's so close to us. You're absolutely right. Those other stars are so far away, it's hard to imagine the size. Okay? Now, I don't know if you'll believe this or not, but if you really think about it, you probably will. If I look at that sky right there, there are billions of stars there. How many of you see any of them? Don't see a one. Why not? because the sun is so bright, it makes the stars bleed out. They're still there. It's just that our atmosphere reflects light from the sun. You can't see anything past it. At night, when the sun's on the other side of the earth, that's when you see the stars. They were always there, still there. You just can't see them because of the sun. Now, remember when I started this, I said you probably, if you could count, you wouldn't get up to 1 billion stars. Nowhere close, probably. I wonder why not.
You can't see all of them.
Okay, why not? Any ideas? Huh? Okay, yeah. If you're anywhere in a town or city or such as that, there's so much light. Street lights, traffic lights, car lights, building lights, all these lights, those are also bleeding out the stars. Okay? And you can't see them all. You only see the brightest ones. Okay? Now, I'll tell you a dumb story, but it's absolutely true. When I was an undergraduate, I went to Georgia Tech, and not promoting that too much, but I am a little bit. Georgia Tech, about 50% of the student body was from the state of Georgia, and most of the 50% was from out of state. Okay? Because so many people came, it was a rather inexpensive but excellent quality education. Okay? So we had lots of people from all over the country and internationally as well. And when I was a sophomore, I was a counselor in a dorm, and I was in a section. We had a lot of fun there. My junior year, I became a senior counselor in that same dorm. And the first quarter of my senior year, I was also that. But in the section that I had been when I was a sophomore, I knew some folks who had moved there the next year, so I knew them. My younger brother came and joined. He was a freshman when I was a senior. So that first term, that was in the fall, he met some of the guys up on the floor that I had known already. They were sophomores. He was a freshman. And one of these guys was named Max. He was from Boston. And one of them was, I think, Bob, I believe. And he was from New York City. Boston and New York City. Well, Dan that's my brother, became pretty good friends with them. And by the spring term, he had invited them to go home to the farm. Now, I grew up in Georgia in a rural area. The closest flashing light was 8 miles away. The closest three-color stoplight was 10 miles away. We were out in the boonies. We still are out in the boonies there. Now, Augusta's 25 miles away, and on the horizon there, you can see where Augusta is because it's a dull reddish glow there. That's where Augusta was. But the rest of it, very dark. Okay? So I just grew up seeing lots of stars because we didn't have, and literally the term they use for this is light pollution, because the light bleeds out those dimmer stars. And I remember as a young boy often seeing the Milky Way. I haven't seen the Milky Way since we lived in Birmingham, when I've been here in Birmingham. You can't see it. Those stars are too faint. You can't see those. Okay? But Dan invited Bob and Max to the farm. And my grandmother, by that time, her health was going down, so they had moved her across the road to my parents' house. And so Dan and Max and Bob were staying in my grandmother's house across the road. Now, I'm sure there was no other reason except there was more room there. I'm sure it had nothing to do with what they may want to partake in while they were over there. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it, but they were staying over in the house by themselves, okay? And whatever they were partaking of, that may have heightened their senses to some extent, but for some reason they went out. And this was spring term. They went out, and it was a cloudless night. And the field was right next door to my grandmother's house. And for some reason, they went outside, and Bob and Max looked up into the sky. They had never seen that many stars in their lives. They'd grown up in Boston and New York City. Never. And in Atlanta, where they're in school, had never been out in the deep woods. I mean, the remote areas like this. They went running through the soybean fields. Look at that! They're screaming. My brother was just dying laughing at him because they were just going nuts. They had never seen that many stars at night. They had never seen the Milky Way. They had never seen the brilliance of that universe. That night, if you could have counted, you might have seen billions of stars. But here in Birmingham, you'll never see billions of stars. Now, of course, a night like tonight, you're going to have clouds cover and stuff like that. You aren't going to see many stars at all. Well, that would be true in the country, too. But most of the time, we can't see that many. Now, you might wonder, what in the world is this a picture of? Anyone want to make a guess? Yes? Okay, I think you just said the right word. This is, I don't know what the building is here, but you're looking due north, and what they've done, this is out probably in the middle of the desert, because there's no clouds to be seen here. Middle of the desert, dry air, not much moisture in the air, and what they've done is set up a camera and just open the aperture and leave it on basically all night. Leave it open. Pitch black dark. I don't know what this is, but that's the North Star. You're absolutely right. It doesn't move. All the rest of the stars look like they're going around the North Star. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing this star as it moves around. Now, maybe there were clouds here, so you didn't see it as much, or here. Or maybe they didn't leave it all night. Maybe they just left it a few hours. But all the stars seem to be circling the North Star. Yes? Why is that? Excellent question. I love hearing these kinds of questions. Does that mean those stars are moving?
No.
Why not?
Because we move.
Ah, that's it. The stars are not moving. We are moving. Okay? My handy-dandy visual aid. Okay? Now, have y'all bunch in here before? Yeah, okay, yeah. I recognize it now. We live on a globe. And what that globe is doing is spinning. Okay? And it spins one time around every day. Every day it goes one time around. Okay? And if we happen to be looking at a star that is here, but we spin, the star appears to move. It doesn't move. We're the things that are moving. Except there's one star that's directly above our North Pole, and that's called the North Star or Polaris, the pole star. That's what this is. It's a little bit of a wobble there. Might be moving ever so slightly, but it may be that the camera moved a little or something like that. So that's why it doesn't move, but all the rest of them seem to go around it. Because we are spinning. They are fixed. We're turning, and that's what makes it look that way. All right. We got one page left. Okay, sorry. I won't be this long-winded on most of it. Okay, so let's look at the night sky. If you got a book, this is on page 354. Now, the little books may have different page numberings, so you'll just have to follow along. But mine. 14.1, chapter 14, the first section is called the night sky. Now, what we call this is celestial. That means stuff that's outside the earth. Celestial observation dates back to ancient civilizations. Now, you might think that because we are more technologically advanced in everything, that we're much smarter than all those folks were, right? Guess what? They knew more about the night sky than we ever will. Now, maybe a few people know a lot about it, but guess what? There's ancient civilizations, no TV, no light pollution, no cell phones, nothing else. What they did at night, nice weather, they probably were lying out there under the stars. And they probably looked at those stars and saw more of those stars and observed their patterns, observed their movement, observed everything about them. They knew way more about that night sky than we do. They, over years and years and years, realized that when this star first showed up at a certain time of year, that was time to plant the barley. Okay? When this other one, that may be when you planted your corn. When this happened, you better start getting in your crop because it's going to be pretty. They knew that night sky. They knew which stars meant what because they only showed up at certain times. Because not only do we spin, we also do what? We revolve around our sun. So when we're spinning here and happen to see a star here and it rises at a certain time, when we're over here, we may not, it rises at a different time. When it goes over there, you may not even see it, okay? So the stars, your view of the stars changes, okay, in many ways. So they understood. Their celestial observation, they were doing it millennia, okay, and they knew what they were looking at, okay? What are these stars? The stars appear as point sources. Now, I'm going to sort of give you a little bit of what they're talking about there. If you look through a very powerful telescope, maybe even the Hubble telescope, they still look like a point source. Just a single little dot. Now, they may be brighter little dots, but they're still a single little dot. Okay? Now, you've heard the little song, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Stars, in general, don't twinkle. Okay? What that is our atmosphere is always changing and doing, and that's what it makes it look like the stars twinkle. They're not really twinkling. Okay? Those twinkle because of our atmospheric disturbance, turbulence. The atmosphere is changing density as it moves around out there, and that makes it look like the stars. There are a few stars that actually do vary in intensity. We'll talk about those a little bit later. We won't get into it now. Now, how far away are those stars? Well, let's start with the closest. What's our closest star?
Approximate Centauri.
Say again?
Approximate Centauri.
Okay, there's one closer than that.
Sun.
The
Oh, I
sun!
thought you were talking about
Okay, yeah, exactly. The sun is a star. How far away is the sun? Anyone make a guess? 93 million miles away. 93 million miles away. Okay? The next closest is Alpha Centauri. Okay? Okay, if I were to write 93 million, it would be a 93, comma, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay? 6 zeros is a million. If I were going to do Alpha Centauri, I don't know how many zeros you would have. It would probably go to the end of this board, and maybe further, in miles. Because that's a long way, and that's the next closest star. So we usually don't measure stars' distances in miles. That's way too short. That would be like saying, what is the distance from here to Tuscaloosa? You want to make a guess?
38 miles.
Someone make a guess. How far from here to Tuscaloosa? Second? 45 what? Miles. No, I want it in inches. How many inches is it here? No, no one would do that. That'd be such a huge number. Who would want to measure it? Well, that's the same thing from here to Alpha Centauri. It would be so many zeros there. It would be such a huge number. You don't measure it in miles. What do we measure it in? In light years. What in the world is a light year? What do you tell me about light? Is it instantaneous? It's what?
In space is not.
Okay.
And out of space is not.
Okay, anywhere it's not. It's just that it travels so fast, it seems like it's instantaneous. You flick on the switch, and it all works as light. But light travels at a speed, a finite speed, and that speed is approximately 186,000 miles per second. So in 1 second, the light has traveled 186,000 miles. In 2 seconds, 72,000 miles, okay? So the light that we see coming from the sun right now left the sun probably just a couple minutes ago. Not that many seconds, but, so many seconds ago. Okay? Now, 186,000 miles per second, multiply that by 60, now you're into the millions of miles. That's how many miles it traveled in a minute. multiply that by another 60, now you're probably in the tens of millions or hundreds of millions. That's how far it traveled in an hour. And then you multiply that by 24, now you're into billions probably of how many miles it traveled in a day. And then you multiply that by 365 and a quarter. Yeah, you're into an enormous number. That's how far light traveled in 1 year. That is 1 light year. Okay? Now, here's what it is. 9.5 times 10 to the 12th kilometers. Now, the book and most science like to use metric system, SI system. Okay? Unfortunately, we're not used to that. So to get this in terms of miles, that's approximately, I'm just going to round it to around 6 point, let's just say 6 times 10 to the 12th miles. So how much would that be? 6, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay? So that would be, I don't even know, see, that would be 1,000 million, billion, trillion. Around 6 trillion miles is how far light travels in 1 year. 6 trillion miles. Okay? Now, the closest star is several light years away. Many light years away. That's the closest one. Then there's a bunch of them that's way further than that. This is unbelievable. If you've ever heard someone say astronomical distances, that's what they mean. So big it's hard to conceive. Okay? Y'all are probably too young to remember a silly comedy show that was on television called The Third Rock from the Sun. Any of you ever hear of that one? Yeah. We are literally a speck of dust. Our Earth is a speck of dust, and this universe is just unbelievably big. It's amazing. Go to that space objects in perspective, and you see how small Earth is compared to just a large star. Okay? We are tiny. Okay. So that's stars. We're going to talk about more about stars later. Let's talk about planets. What are planets? Anyone name a planet?
Mercury.
Say again?
Mercury.
Mercury's one.
Venus.
Venus is one.
Jupiter,
Jupiter's one.
Mars.
Saturn's one.
Neptune.
Neptune's one.
Mars.
Mars is one.
Mercury,
Mercury's one. Who said that?
Uranus.
Earth is one. Okay. And then there's Uranus and some of these others. We're planets. What makes a planet as opposed to a star?
it does not create
Planets don't
nuclear
walk.
fusion.
Planets on what?
Planets don't give off light.
Okay, very good. But look what, I can see Venus out there. I can see Jupiter out there. How can I see them if they don't give off light? Yes.
They reflect.
They reflect light. That's because they're so close to us, we can see the reflected light. Just like the moon doesn't give off light, but we see light reflecting off the sun on the moon getting to us. So planets are visible by reflected. You were reading the slide, weren't you? Okay. By reflected light. Now, if you were to get a telescope, pretty good, reasonable telescope, sorry, I can't do anything. They don't allow us to.
It's fun.
Back years ago, we could control the thermostat. Now they make it automatic. We can't. Okay? But if you had a pretty powerful telescope and look at a planet, you don't see a speck of light like you would a star. You see actually a extended source. You see what looks like a circle or a sphere, but usually may have, like the moon, it has a wedge out of it. So that's because of the portion, you only see the portion of the star that the sun is shining on. Okay. So stars, planets are much closer and only visible because they reflect light. Okay. And because they are fairly closer, they don't tend to twinkle as much as stars do, but that's another issue. All right. Now, does anyone know what this represents? It is actually a picture of an actual site. Anyone know what it is?
Is the sun down?
Stonehenge, is that what someone said? Perfect. What in the world is Stonehenge?
Is it a sundial?
It's what?
Is it some kind of?
Is it an ancient clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all are right on the money here. This was built by some ancient civilization in England, in the island nation of England. We don't even know what civilization built it. It was way before the Anglo-Saxons, way before the Norman French, way probably before the Picts and the Celts and whatever else. It was some ancient civilization. They built this structure. Now, I don't know if you can tell in this picture here, I can't see anybody, but the one that's in your book, it's a closer picture. I thought I saw a person in it. But if you saw a person here, the person would appear to be about this tall. So these are some huge chunks of rock. And guess what? They didn't come from anywhere close to this place. The best they've been able to figure, they came from hundreds of miles away. Now, number one, how did that ancient civilization move those bigger rocks that many miles? How did they do it? I don't know. I don't have a clue. And I think most say again, and yeah, nobody does. You're absolutely right.
Maybe they moved them when all the continents were connected.
What's that?
Maybe they moved them when all the continents were connected.
They could have been, but I think they are from England. So I don't think they had to cross the channel or anything. But they're just hundreds of miles away in England. Okay? But maybe not. They may have, okay. May have been while the continents were still connected, and we'll be talking about that later too. Another chapter, many chapters away, but we'll get there. Okay, so that's number one. How did they get them there? Now, how did they shape them like this? That's a lot of work for an ancient civilization. And then the next question, anyone thought of that yet? How did they set them up? How did they get that rock, which probably weighed, yes? Okay, you have a theory. Go ahead.
What if they didn't move the rocks and just carved it out of a big boulder?
Okay, but there's no boulder around here. The boulder was hundreds of miles away.
And if that was a boulder.
If that was a boulder, yeah, except that this rock is probably a little different from that one and
I
that
don't know
one.
how to get that.
Yeah, I do not know. Just like you were saying before, nobody knows. How in the world did they do this? How did they even get them set up this way? And originally they were all set up like this. You know, two here and one across there. There's been so many hundreds, tens or thousands of years that they've been there that weather has worn them away, and some of them have fallen and other things, but they were all there. Now, so all those mysteries. Now, when you stand in the middle of this circle of these structures and look for the first star you see or constellation you see or different thing, this is set up like a perfect calendar. That something shows up right in between those at exactly the right time every year. Okay? How did some ancient civilization, before technology, before computers, before any of this, how did they build this thing? How did they build it that precisely so that they could predict everything?
They stayed outside.
Yeah, they stayed outside and observed. But then how did they, what were they using to measure it? I'm not even sure that we in today's high technology thing could get something that perfectly placed.
They probably moved it they probably studied it for so long. Every like, I guess every hour they just move it. They know when to move it, how to move it.
You think they moved this thing? I think they set it up and it hasn't moved since. But they set it up perfectly. Now, you may be right, but I don't know.
Maybe it took more than one.
Huh?
Yeah, maybe it took more
They
than one.
may have miniature rocks in it. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Once they had miniature rocks, it was like, okay, this is it.
Oh, yeah, they made a prototype. Is that what you're saying? Right, okay.
Did you know the ancient pyramids of Egypt is aligned with precisely with Orion's belt and the constellation of Orion?
Is that right? I didn't know that. I hadn't heard that. Yeah. These kind of things are great paper topics if you want to pursue that and you can find enough on it. Fantastic. Way to go. How did they do this? We don't have a clue. How did they have enough knowledge, technology, experience, expertise? Those are some pretty incredible people. They knew it way more than we know, okay, in many ways. Okay, sorry, probably beat that to death. Stonehenge is in England, one of the, I think, ancient wonders of the world. There are other structures like this in other places. This is probably the best. So, how did these ancient people consider the heavens, the stars? Well, the concept was a celestial sphere. So I sort of imagine if I were lying down on a nice warm blanket out in the middle of an open field and looking up at this thing, it looks like everything above me is under a bowl. Okay, I'm under a bowl, and the stars are in that bowl. That's what they call the celestial sphere. Now, we know that's not true, but this is how they pictured it. The celestial objects are projected onto that imaginary sphere surrounding the Earth. Okay? Now, if we get to go to the planetarium, you're going to see things that are projected, like from a projector like this, but it's a very special kind. But the earliest planetarium, the one they had at Stanford University, at Birmingham Southern College, that's the first one I went to, it actually had this monster that came out of the floor with a big bright light in the middle, and it had holes in it, and literally that was what you received. It was projecting onto a sphere. And that is how they imagined the celestial objects projected onto imaginary spheres surrounding the Earth. Now, all we ever see is a hemisphere, because we only see the top half. The bottom half we can't see because the Earth's in our way. Okay? So that's what we call the celestial sphere. Now, here's how I imagine it. Here's the Earth. That's the globe, right? Okay? Let's imagine that you had a single, very bright light right in the center of the Earth. Okay? And then that was projecting very bright light, and then you would have, if you had a hole there at the North Pole, that would be the North Star. Because the light would be coming out of the center and going straight there. Now, if you had a hole down here, that would be a South Celestial Pole if you had one, but there's not a single star down there. But that would be the projection of our South Celestial Pole. Just happens we have a star that fits right there, Polaris, the North Star. Now, if you also really, if you had an imaginary circle around here, what do we call that circle? The equator. Then you projected the light, and that would form an arc that goes across like this because of the shape of this, the angle of this. That would project an arc like that. That's what we call the celestial equator. Okay? The North Pole would be the celestial North Pole, where the North Star is, and there would be a celestial South Pole, where there's no star down there, but that would still be our South Pole. And they align with the Earth's equator, the Earth's poles. Okay? So that's our picture of the celestial sphere. Okay? Now, here's how they showed it. Here's the Earth, and believe it, the Earth is tilted. Okay? It is tilted with respect to the sun. Okay, it's tilted like that. Here's our North Pole, South Pole, and there's our equator. So here's the North Celestial Pole exactly up from there, South Celestial Pole directly from there, and the celestial equator, the projection of our equator here. So some of these stars are above the celestial equator, some are below the celestial equator. There are a couple of other circles we usually refer to, but the stars are fixed. We spin, making it look like the stars move, but they don't. But that's how we refer to the celestial sphere. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't know what picture should have gone there, but it isn't showing up. here's that picture we saw earlier. This is on page 355. This is that celestial North Pole, the polar star Polaris. And then this is from a camera. They just left it open, I'm guessing probably 6 hours or something like that, while this star tended to move that far, that move that far, this move that far, this move that far. You know, but other stars were behind it. They just weren't as bright. So that's that picture that we see there. The Earth is spinning. The stars are fixed in place. So this is a picture of that celestial sphere.
This is on Blackboard.
Yeah, all these PowerPoints are on Blackboard, in Blackboard. In that PowerPoint folder, you can click that little arrow on the side and you can see all these. Yeah?
Do you think the sun could be a North Star to another planet?
A little louder,
Do you think the sun could be a North Star to another planet?
Yeah, I guess it could be. It definitely could. By the way, the North Star is not a particularly bright star, and so therefore it could be. Our whole concept of north, south, east, and west depends on that. You know, if some other planet happens to be aligned so that the projection from one end of its axis to the other end of its axis happens to point toward whatever our faint little sun looks like there, it could be the North Star. It certainly could. Had never thought about it that way, but it certainly could. Of course, there would have to be someone on that planet to see it, but you know, that's another story. Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about a few of these terms here. All right. Let's imagine I'm standing on the surface of the Earth, which I approximately am. Okay, and I'm seeing a star up here. Let's say that the projector there happens to be that star. I'm looking at that star. Now, how do we talk about where that star is? Well, I have around me what we call the horizon. Okay? So if I take the horizon and measure with a sextant or something the angle from horizontal, to that star, that's what we call our altitude angle. That's pretty simple. From dead level to that star, that angle is the altitude angle. Okay? There's another angle that we need, and that is how far around it is. Well, around from what? Okay? They call this angle the azimuth angle. And this isn't in my mind, a very important one, and I sometimes forget the exact definition of it. But I think they take due south, and then they measure along the horizon until you get directly below that star, and that angle is the azimuth angle. Okay? You need two angles to define where you are on the sphere. And since that star we're imagining on a celestial sphere, you need two. Just like we do here on the Earth. If you say, here we are in Birmingham, right there. How do we define where we are on the Earth? We go to the angle above the equator. That would sort of be like an azimuth angle, not quite. That would be our latitude. And then we have to pick some other place. And where they pick is this line right here. That happens to be the Greenwich Mean. Okay. It's called the Prime Meridian. And it goes through Greenwich, England. Okay? And that was where the Naval Observatory was in England. So that's what we pick as Prime Meridian and measure the angle that gets us around directly underneath Earth. So you need two angles. The first of these angles is the altitude angle. The second is the azimuth angle. How far from some fixed location. Okay. On the celestial sphere. Now, here's another term. Now, we're going to use this one a lot. The celestial meridian. So how you find your celestial meridian, wherever you happen to be, you have a celestial meridian. So what you do, you find that North Star, and you look straight toward the North Star, and you're facing due north, and go from your horizon right beneath the North Star, straight overhead, and go down to the horizon that would be due south. Now, South Pole is way down there. You never see it, but due south. that would be your celestial meridian. Okay? The east-west location of you, the observer. That's your celestial meridian. I don't know why they call it east-west. There is a reason for it, but okay. Now, objects appear to rotate about the north and south poles. That's exactly what this is showing. Rotation around that North Star. Okay? And the reason is because we're spinning. They're not rotating, but we're spinning. Now, the ancients didn't know that. Okay? They thought they were actually moving. Okay? They were a lot like teenagers. They thought they were the center of the universe. Oh, I didn't say that. Okay. No. All right. But that's how they thought. Objects appear to rotate about that north-south pole because we're spinning around that north-south axis. Okay. Is this kind of making sense? Okay. Now, so here's the observer looking at a star right here, and his altitude angle is 30 degrees above the horizon, looking straight on the horizon, 30 degrees up. And then from the south pole, which is 180 degrees, around here it's 45 degrees east of the south. So if I were doing him, I would have been here, and that angle would have been 45 degrees that way, up here 30 degrees that way. Okay? So this would have been the altitude angle, this would have been the azimuth angle. You always have to have a direction with it. It's 45 degrees east, the way I was describing before, and that was my star. It would have been 135 degrees west of due south. Okay. Is this kind of making sense? Now, don't get too bogged down with this. You're not going to need to know all these gory details, but just so you'll have an idea when they refer to things, what they're talking about. That's most of it. Okay. I don't know what slide was supposed to be there, but there's nothing there. All right. That finished the night sky. Okay. 14.2 is stars. Okay. And we've already sort of talked about a little bit of this. We're going to get into some pretty gory detail now. What in the world is a star?
Gas.
It's a gas. Well, actually, it's not quite true, even though this says it's a gas. Okay? It's actually not a gas, but a plasma. Anyone know the difference between a gas and a plasma? A plasma is charged. A gas is neutral, plasma is charged. It's so hot that it's actually charged. But when they say incandescent, that means it's glowing, which means it has to be charged. So they're gases, and gases you think of as really light, right? But these are massive, 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 very dense balls of incandescent gas. Now, incandescent means it's lighting. It's providing its own light. You can almost see the word candle in here. So it's giving off light, incandescent gas. Okay. Now, why is it giving off light? Those planets out there aren't giving off light. We're not giving off light. The moon's not giving off light. Why are those stars giving off light? Okay. Probably everybody's seen fire burn, right? Okay. Well, what's happening there, you have chemical reactions going on that are oxidizing materials. Fats, carbohydrates, things like this. And in doing that, it gets hot enough, it glows. Okay? But in a while, you burn them up and they don't glow anymore. Okay. Now, what happened at Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Nuclear bomb. I wasn't there. I wasn't born. I'm not that old. Okay. Close, but not that old. Okay. But those were nuclear weapons. Now, if you had seen that blow up, you probably would be blind today. Okay? Well, you wouldn't be alive today, probably. But anyway. But yeah, that was such an intense brightness, it probably would have burned your retina. So probably anyone who saw it probably was blind within a short time or some time. Okay? Because a nuclear reaction is way hotter than the hottest fire you can ever imagine. I mean, many, many times. Now those reactions were what we call fission, nuclear fission, the splitting of big, heavy atoms, okay, nuclei, plutonium or uranium, usually, okay? What we're talking about on a star, that is a nuclear reaction, but this is a fusion reaction. Those are many, many, many times more powerful than a fission reaction. Many times more. In fact, people have exploded hydrogen bombs. A hydrogen bomb is a fusion reaction that is so much brighter than Nagasaki or Hiroshima was, because those were fission explosions. And those were incredibly bright. In order to get a fusion bomb, a hydrogen bomb to work, you have to set off, I think it's about 3 different fission bombs to force the fusion to happen to make enough the fusion happen. It's incredibly intense. Incredibly intense. Okay? And that's sort of a one-shot deal, though. It happens and then it dies. I mean, just like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Well, guess what? A star is a constant fusion reaction. It's going on every second, every day, every year, every millennia for millions, billions, or trillions of years. That's pretty intense, okay? Fusion reactions, and those are happening in the core. Now, every star, and we'll see this a little bit later, has a core, and then there's the outer part, and then there's the yet further outer part. So in the core, that's where the fusion reactions are occurring. What you see is the actual outer boundary, you might say, of the star. It's just reflecting, or not reflecting, it's transmitting the light that's coming from that intense reactions in the core. Now, like I've already said a couple of times before, our sun is an average star. Its average size, its average heat, its average brightness, its average lifetime, it's average in every way. Nothing special about our sun at all. But it's our reference for understanding other stars. And it's sort of good that it's in the middle, because then there's some are brighter and some are dimmer. Some are bigger and some are smaller. Some are hotter, some are cooler. So it stands right in the middle. Okay? Now, yes? Oh, go ahead. I was going to move to this side, but since we're...
Is the sun a yellow dwarf star?
Not a dwarf, it's a yellow star. And that's because of the heat of the sun.
So what about orange dwarf or orange star? Is it cooler than?
Orange would be a little bit cooler. Yeah.
If our sun was an orange star, would be...
What's that mean?
If our sun was an orange star, would it be any different?
We probably wouldn't be warm enough to exist where we are. Venus might be in good shape, except their atmosphere is terrible. Okay, so we are very, very, very fortunate to be right where we are, right with the sun we've got, right at the right distance, and right with the right atmosphere, and right with the right everything, that we happen to be able to support life. Really strange. Or maybe not. Okay. All right. So, how do stars begin? Now, I said we would use this word again. Here it is again. A nebula. Now, that almost sounds like some other word. What other word would that be? Have you ever heard someone talk about, that's pretty nebulous? Ever heard that term? What does that mean? It means... Second? Kind of crazy. It doesn't seem to have any structure to it. There's no meaning. It's out there. Okay? That's how stars begin. You have a bunch of gases. Okay? Now you think of the outer space as being void, vacant, nothing there. But there's something there. Not a lot of something, but there's something there. And these gases are out there. And you start off with this mass of gases. Now they're not very close to each other, but they're out there. And they're just out there in a mass. No shape, no form, just out there in big, huge, huge mass of gases. Mostly hydrogen gas, which is the lightest element there is. Now, I don't know, our book left, but in the periodic table, hydrogen is right here, number 1. It's the very lightest element we have. 1 proton, usually no neutrons, 1 electron. Lightest you can get. Can't get any lighter than hydrogen. And that's what most of the gases out there in these nebula are, mostly hydrogen. Now, we don't know why. We have some ideas of why, but something could happen, like a shock wave comes. Say somewhere quadrillions of miles away, a star blows up and it sends some sort of shock wave. And that shock wave happens to hit this gaseous nebula and pushes some of those atoms closer together. Can that happen? Are you hearing me? Why are you hearing me? Because when I'm talking, hold your hand in front of your mouth when you're speaking. You feel little pulses of gas, don't you? Of your breath coming out. That's why you can hear me, because I'm sending out waves, compression waves. So something somewhere across the universe somewhere, something happened, produced a shock wave. And if it hits one of these gaseous nebula and pushes some of those gases closer together, that introduces what they call gravitational collapse. Because any two objects, the product of their masses, see, all this is assuming you had the first half of the book in physics and chemistry. See, a lot of what we talked about, if we had the first half of the book, you say, oh yeah, okay, but you haven't had the first half of the book, so I'm trying to explain it now. Okay? Anytime you have two masses, they're attracted to each other by Newton's law of universal gravitation. Product of the masses divided by the distance between them squared. And there's a constant from universal gravitation constant. Okay? So, you push some of these closer together, they get close enough together, they don't move back where they were, they get attracted to each other. And as they get attracted to each other, they increase the mass, the overall mass. Now they increase the mass and they pull in more. And they pull in more. And suddenly you have these atoms that were out there by themselves now attracted to each other, and they're getting closer and closer, and therefore you call it gravitational collapse. Because they're taking up less volume because they're getting closer together. But the closer together they get, the more massive they get, they pull in more. And that's what they mean by gravitational collapse. Okay? Now, if we had had the first half of the book, we know there's a thing called gravitational potential energy. And as these things get closer together, they're releasing that gravitational potential energy. Now, what happens to that energy? As these atoms get closer together, and by the way, all these atoms are always moving. Always moving, no matter where they are. There's never an atom that's at rest. They're always moving. Random motion. They call it Brownian motion sometimes. Okay? Everything's always moving. But then when they get closer together, in that motion, they bounce into each other. Now I want you to do something. I want you to take your two hands and push them against each other and rub. And tell me what you feel. They're producing heat. Why? Because of friction. Those are, anytime you have motion, the energy of motion is becoming energy of heat. That's what happens here. Gravitational energy is released into higher temperatures, but then the closer to get together, the higher the pressure. And pressure is force per unit area. You would have had that in the first half of the book. So, if this continues, and you've got a big enough gas nebula, gaseous nebula, and it keeps bringing them in, what you get is hotter and hotter and hotter temperatures, and you form what they call a protostar. A protostar is an accumulation of gases that will become a star. After a certain point, you get such a big mass, you get such high temperatures, you can't back out of it. Now, some of these gaseous nebulae may come together and get closer, but then they don't have enough there to get hot enough, and then after a while they disperse. That won't ever become a star. It won't become a star then. Okay? But once it becomes a protostar, can anyone remember the Julius Caesar story, once he crossed the Rubicon, he crossed that river. Once he did that, he was going to become emperor, or else they were going to kill him. Okay, he became emperor. Okay, well, once it passes that point of being a protostar, there's no backing out of it. It's not going to rebound. It's going to become a star. Okay, so that's what a protostar is. That's that accumulation of these gases that have gotten so hot at such high pressure, there's no way around it. They're not ever going back out again. They are going to become a star. Okay? Now, they jump from there to look at an existing star. Okay? Now, I told you there were these three regions of a star earlier. And I think they mentioned the name of the first, and that was the core. Okay? Here's the core. You talk about hot. That is hot. That's where those nuclear fission reactions are going on. That's the very, very hottest and most dense region of that star. That's where the nuclear fusion is going on. And it is releasing radiation like crazy. Okay? Now, when you were rubbing your hands together, you were releasing infrared radiation. Low-level radiation, that's heat. Okay? When the light burns, it's giving off this light radiation. Yellow, the whole range of light. When the fire's going, it's giving off radiation. Everything. When that core is so hot, it's giving off incredibly high energy gamma and X-ray radiation. It's the highest radiation you can get. It's deadly stuff. In fact, the space out there is full of this deadly radiation. Full of it. Why are we alive? Because we have an atmosphere around us. Part of that atmosphere part of it is called the ionosphere. And different pieces of that keep that deadly radiation from coming to the surface. Our atmosphere is saving us. Okay? These people that go out as astronauts, get outside of our atmosphere, they have to wear these big, heavy, bulky spacesuits if they're anywhere exposed out there, because they can't be, and if you've ever seen them, they're silvery looking, right? That's because they reflect that radiation. If they didn't, they're toast. Okay? Now, y'all are probably too young to remember Soyuz. Does anyone know what Soyuz was? S-O-Y-U-Z or something like that. It was one of the early Soviet space stations. Remember, there was a space race, and we were always trying to outdo them. They were trying to outdo us. The Soviets put up, maybe not the first, but the first one to be fairly successful, space station out there in space. And they put people out there on it. But they didn't, we had shuttles and things, they just had unmanned rockets. And they tried to control everything remotely, sort of like drones. But they didn't have drones back then, but they were doing that. And so they would bring supplies and other people into the space station and take the others home. That's how they did things. Well, one of those cargo ships, either whoever was driving or something with the computers, something messed up and crashed into the space station, causing enough damage that the cosmonauts that were on board the station had to get into a little safe area, a tiny little cavity in the middle that was protected because they had been toasted, they had. And they were stuck in there for I don't know how many weeks. And I think that we sent up a space shuttle with enough astronauts to help repair it for them and got them working again. Now, those astronauts that were out there on spacewalks trying to repair broken, splintered metal, sharp edges and stuff like this with those spacesuits on, if they would have nicked that spacesuit on some of that jagged metal, ripped it, they'd have been toast. I mean, it would have been awful. Number one, Are you under any pressure right now? It's early in the term. Are you under any pressure? Yes, you are. Okay? This, your two thumbs right next to each other, is approximately 1 square inch. That joint of the thumb, those two together is about 1 square inch. Every square inch of your body is under close to 15 pounds of pressure. It's called 14.7 PSI, standard atmospheric pressure. That's the pressure of our atmosphere weighing down on us. You might not think air weighs very much, but it does, okay? Almost 15 pounds for every square inch of your body. Why are we not crushed? Because if you measure how many square inches there are on your body, that's a lot of weight on you. Why aren't we crushed?
Isn't it like pressing in every direction?
Yes, we are pressing out with at least that much. That's why when you nick your hand, the blood goes out, it doesn't suck in. Okay? You're under greater pressure inside than you have outside. You're under, they call it turgor pressure. My mom used to do this. She's dead now, but unfortunately I can do it now. She would pull up on her skin like this, and it would stay in a teepee longer than mine. But you notice how you do it? There's hardly any. It goes right down, doesn't it? Shame. Okay. Okay. Because as you get older, you get less of that pressure inside. Okay. But anyway, so you're pressurized. Okay. You've got pressure inside you that handles that pressure outside. When they're out there in outer space, there's no atmosphere above them. Okay? If they had nicked that suit, and those suits, they're not just silver and tough and everything else, they also are pressurized. That's why they look like the Michelin Power Man. Because they're like that. But the reason is they're pressurized. If they weren't, they're in trouble. If you nick that suit, there goes all your pressure out of your eyes, your ears, and everything. There goes all your blood, all the gases, your lungs, everything goes flying into space. You wouldn't have time for the radiation to kill you. Okay, you'd be dead from the other thing. We probably would be fortunate. But I don't know. I mean, so those people who were doing things like that, the most dangerous job, I want to say on Earth, but it wasn't on Earth. That was really tough stuff. That radiation is deadly. Our atmosphere saves us. So there again, our planet just happens to have the perfect atmosphere to block that deadly radiation so that we can live down here on the surface. Okay. So that's the core. Intense radiation coming out of that nuclear fusion there. Okay. What's the next layer? This layer in here is called the radiation zone. That's where that radiation is going out. It diffuses outward over millions of years. These stars are huge. It's going at close to the speed of light, and it's still taking millions of years. These are huge, okay? Now, that's a little bit of a misnomer, but it's close. Then on the very outer surface, we have what they call the convection zone. Now, what does the word convection mean to you? Again, if we'd had the first half of the book, you would have made sense. What does convection mean? Have you ever heard the expression, hot air rises? Yeah. Another phrase for it is the chimney effect. Okay? Why? Because when something heats up, the molecules of gas, they expand. Because they're bouncing against each other at higher energies and getting further apart, so they are less dense, so the heat rises and the cool comes down. Say again? Clouds do that. If you've ever watched a pot of water boil, you'll see it comes up in the middle and goes down around the sides, because the sides are cooler than the middle, and the water is boiling like this. That's convection. That's what's happening in the outer part. Radiation is coming out of the core, but then when it gets close enough to the edge, wherever the edge is, it starts cooling, and some of it's going up, it cools, it comes down, it cools, it goes up. So this is what we see. We see the outer part of the convection zone. We don't see the core, we don't see the radiation zone, we see the outer limits, you might say, of the convection zone. So, The convection zones are structured by the hot material rising from the interior, cooling as it gets near the edge, comes back down, sinking, more comes up and rises, and that's what's going on the surface. The upper reaches are the visible surface of the stars. There's no surface there. You couldn't walk on them. You'd be burnt before you ever got close enough. There is no solid surface. Even though it looks like it's an object, it's just a gas, a mass of hot gases. Okay? Now, the sun's surface temperature is around 5,800 K. Does anyone know what K means? Kelvin. Anyone know what Kelvin means?
Really hot.
Okay. All right. Now, here's basically where we go. Again, if you'd had the first half of the book, you would have already gotten familiar with this. Okay? Because when things heat up, they expand. Gases. But solid and liquid do too, but gases especially. When they heat up, they expand. Okay? So the volume increases. Now, as long as you keep the pressure the same, for an increased temperature, the volume increases. Now, dumb story with this one, I did graduate work at University of Nebraska in Lincoln, which is pretty cold up there. Many areas colder, but for a boy from the South, that was cold. And there was a kid from our church, his parents were divorced, and the father lived halfway across the state, and the woman wanted someone to come, and a man to come so he could have some, a male, not role model, but just someone to hang around with. So I was single. I thought, I don't know if he's about ready to get, so it can't be me. But then he came out, he was a really good athlete, came out from the church softball team, and he was really good, so I encouraged him a lot, and we got to be friends. So I thought, well, maybe I could do that. So I started going over there on the weekends some and just hanging around with him and stuff. And one time, really cold weather, he had left the basketball out overnight. Okay? He wanted to shoot some hoops that Sunday afternoon. And he went to get the ball. He said, I must have punctured the ball. It's flat. I said, put it in the house. It'll be okay. He said, no, it's flat. I said, put it in the house. So it was really cold outside. The house it was. So he finally said, I'll humor this old cougar, So anyway, he put it in the house, and we did some other things. I said, you still want to shoot some hoops? He said, well, yeah, okay. So go get the ball. He said, well, it's flat. We haven't pumped it up yet. Go get the ball. He went in and said, it's pumped up. Who did this, What had happened, it heated up, and the pressure came up. The pressure increased, so it seemed like before. It had decreased the volume, and the temperature was down, increased the volume. So, pretty bright people realized that. And they started plotting this. And they took a certain gas, at a certain temperature, and equal pressure, measured its volume. And then lowered the temperature, and they watched the volume decrease. And decrease. And decrease. Now, it got way cold down here. It kept decreasing its volume. Now, at some point, it got really, really small. But at some point, it actually collapsed and became a liquid. You do that to any gas, and it will become a liquid. Yeah?
Is that what my tires in my car, is that why when it's really cold,
They'll look like
goes
they're,
down?
yes,
But
exactly.
when it's hot,
Right, absolutely. That's why you never, if you want to get if your tire pressure is right, don't do it when you've just been driving for an hour or two on a hot summer day. Your tire pressure will always be too high. If you take the air out, you're going to be too flat later. So you always do it when the tires are cold. That's the pressure. Yeah, that's exactly it. You're right on the money. Yeah.
That's why, going back to cars, that's why in the winter time, some people's cars just sound like their engine is rattling.
Yeah.
And in the summertime, it's fine.
Yeah, now there's several things that could be happening with that. If it expands a bit too much, and I don't know if you've ever noticed it, when they balance your tires, they try to get it right on it's called the rotational equilibrium, is just right. And they'll take these little weights and move them along the rim until it's perfectly smooth. Well, if it expands too much, that lake may be out of line, and now it gets rough again. Yeah, that's exactly what you're talking about, and that's because you're expanding. Okay, y'all are good at physics, I can tell. Okay, so anyway, so what they did, they kept doing, and at some point, when you get cold enough, it melts. I mean, it condenses. But it made, as long as it was a gas, it made a straight line. Well, then they took another gas, and it made a straight line. Okay, and another gas, it made one. And they noticed about all these straight lines, they tended to be pointing in the same direction. Now remember, this was your temperature scale here. This was your volume scale there. They were all pointing to the same temperature. Now they never got there because they all became liquids before they got there. But as long as they were gases, they were pointing to that same position. Now, people with thermodynamics said that's as cold as anything could get. And that's called absolute zero. In other words, 0 K. So that's as cold as anything could be. Now, a Kelvin degree is the same size as a Celsius degree. Okay? So, Celsius degree, there's 100 Celsius degrees between freezing point of water and boiling point of water. There's 180 Fahrenheit degrees between that. So, a Celsius degree is bigger. So, you're absolutely right. This is really, really, really hot. Okay? So, that's just an average temperature of, surface temperature of any old star. You have some of them that are many times bigger than that, and some of them that are fractions of that. So another hand, yeah.
So with 580,
5,800.
I'm sorry, 5,800 Kelvin is the surface of the sun. How hot is lightning?
Lightning? It's probably, I'm just going to make a guess here, maybe 1,500 K or something like that. I don't know. Lightning is actually, there's more energy there than just heat. There's electrical energy. That's the big trouble with lightning. It will burn you because that's hot, but the main thing is the potential difference in the electrical charges. So that's the more dangerous thing with lightning. All right, good questions. So let's talk about how long stars go. Now, by the way, I don't have a clock up here with me. I'll keep talking forever. So y'all are going to have to let me know when we get close to 5:45.
Okay.
Okay, and I won't believe anything, but yeah, I mean, okay. So let me know. Don't let me go too far past 5:45, or else I have to charge you extra money, right? No, I'm just kidding. I would do this. Okay, lifetime of the sun. Now, this is almost hard to believe. I think every one of you probably knows this, and you may not know actually what it means, but if I say the name Albert Einstein, does any formula come into your brain? What? E equal mc squared. Now, just about everybody knows that. That's Einstein's famous formula. Okay? Does anyone know what that means? Okay? E is energy. Okay? Energy is not mass, not matter. Okay? M, that's mass. Okay? Now, the SI unit for mass is kilogram. And I've used SI rather than US customary because we don't really have a good unit for mass. So this would be kilogram. 1 kilogram would be about half the mass of this book, approximately. Something about like that. Does anyone know what C is? I've actually already given you that before, but I didn't call it C. C is the speed of light. Now, this is, in U.S. customary units, 186,000 miles per second. Okay? Now, if you got that into kilometers per second, that's way more than 200,000 kilometers per second, which I'm guessing maybe even closer to 300,000 kilometers. It's a huge number. Take that huge number and square it. Let's just say 200,000. That's too small. That would be 400 billion or something or another. An enormously large number. Take that and multiply it by mass, 1 kilogram. You've got an enormous amount of energy. I mean, an astronomical amount of energy. Again, using that term. Okay. Now, when we say the lifetime of the sun, that nuclear reaction is converting mass into energy. The energy we're feeling out here, the heat that we get, and we get just a tiny little amount of it. If you think about the energy going out in the sun in all directions, we get this tiny little spot here, we're getting enough to keep us really warm. And we're not 93 million miles away. Think of all that energy that's just going out there. So that energy is made up of about 1.4 times 10 to the 17 kilograms. Now remember, a kilogram is about half the mass of this book. 1.4 times 10 to the 17 kilograms of matter, converting that to energy every year. Now they say that's about 2,700 or 2,700 3-ton SUVs are just becoming energy, vaporizing into energy. Okay, wait, that's an awful lot of mass. But the sun is enormously huge, okay? So, after a while, you're not going to have enough mass left there. But it's not the lack of mass. Based on what we know, our best guess is that our sun was born about 5 billion years ago. And we think it's about midway through its lifespan. So it's got only about 5 billion years left. I think it'll outlive me, okay? So I'm not worried about that, okay? But we think it's about that. It has enough hydrogen in it for another 5 billion years. Now, it's not going to lose all that hydrogen, but you see, when hydrogen fuses, it becomes helium. But once it fuses the helium, it won't fuse anymore. The hydrogen won't, because we won't have enough of it to do that. So we think it's about halfway through its lifespan. Now, the lifespan depends on the stellar mass. So you tell me, which you think will last longer, a more massive star or a less massive star?
More massive star.
Okay, because it has more hydrogen, right? Guess what? It's the other way around. Because the more massive star burns it up so much faster, it doesn't last as long. Because the larger the mass, the less massive stars have longer lifetimes. That's why I got in front of this. And the more massive stars have shorter lifetimes. Let me just give you a rough idea. We say our sun will last about 5 billion years, 10 billion years total, from beginning to end, about 10 billion years. The less massive stars in our sun can sometimes go trillions of years. The most massive stars will only go a few millions of years. So we're right in the middle again. Lifespan, everything. Okay? Now that sounds like a long time even for large, massive stars. Now, I was hearing I listen to NPR a lot. It's National Public Radio. They have a lot of real good science stuff, all sorts of good stuff on there. And I'm pretty sure that's where I heard it. Every Friday there's a show called Science Friday. I love listening to Science Friday, and I usually get off about the time it's coming on, so I get to listen to it. So I believe it was on Science Friday. They reported that there may be a supernova about to happen somewhere. These are those massive stars. They don't happen very frequently, every million years or so, but there's enough of them out there that could be happening at different times. And they have seen a few of these supernovas in the past. You just don't get to see them frequently. But they think there's one that we might be able to see, if not in our lifetime, within a few generations we may be able to see another supernova, which would probably be brighter than the moon, if you can imagine that. It's pretty amazing. But this is how we determine the lifespan of different stars. Okay? Now, I should have been interrupting to do this. Those of you who will be taking the second half, most of the examples were going to work. These examples I got here, a lot of them depend on knowing the stuff from the first half, and since we haven't had the first half, it wouldn't be very fair to do to you, but some of them are just made up anyway. So here is a example 14.4, and by the way, I probably should have mentioned several other things. Every now and then they have a little thing called a science sketch. Those are usually sort of fun to read, but sometimes not that good. There will be others called concepts applied. And this is one I skipped over and I probably should have mentioned because it is a pretty useful one. Maybe several of you have probably already heard this. Now, if I say, what is a constellation, what would you say? A group of stars that look like they're in some shape. And if I say, what's your most well-recognized constellation, what would you say? The which? The Big Dipper, okay. And actually, you're really close, but not quite right, because the Big Dipper is not actually a constellation. It's part of a constellation called the Big Bear, or Ursa Major. But it's just part of that. But it's the thing we can see. I can't see a bear out there. No matter how hard I try, I can't picture a bear out there. Yes?
The best two ones I can picture is the constellation of Cygnus and the constellation of
Orion, that's my favorite constellation. You can almost picture there's a warrior, because you can see two shoulders, sort of a head, two legs, and you can see a belt, and you can see a sword. Okay, you can almost picture that's a warrior. But the Big Dipper is a part of a constellation, but it's the most recognizable thing in the night sky from the northern hemisphere where we are. So all those 7 stars, I think it is, in that are pretty bright. Okay? And it really shows up well. Now, the Big Dipper has a curved handle and then a dipper. Okay? Like you dip water. Okay? The last 2 stars in the dipper are called the Pointer stars. Not the Pointer Sisters, that was a singing group. But no, okay, never mind. Okay, the Pointer stars. If you extend from the bottom of the dipper and you go out there far enough in the sky, you'll see another little star there. That's the North Star. That's how you can always find the North Star. Find the Big Dipper, find the last 2 stars on the dipper part, and project it. And it's not a very bright star, but you'll see the North Star. Now, the North Star is the end of another set of stars called the Little Dipper. It's the end of the handle of that. Now, the Little Dipper, the handle curves the wrong way. I can never see the whole Little Dipper. No matter out in the country, I can't quite picture it all. I can imagine it. Big Dipper, I can always pick out. It's not so that concepts applied is the one they were talking about. Okay, I just wanted to do that. Now, sometimes these are fun in the book. These are called myths, mistakes, and misunderstandings. And the one they hear, can you see stars visible from the bottom of a well? That's something I remember hearing when I was in high school. They say, no, you can't. You just can't do it. Okay. So anyway. Then on page 356, those are both on 356, here's an example 14.1. Now, I'm not going to go over this whole thing with you, but just to give you the idea of the magnitude you're talking about, Justin mentioned Orion, which is my favorite constellation too. The Orion Nebula, that's the nebula of massive gases in Orion, is about 20 light years across. Remember what a light year was? So many trillions of miles, and multiply that by 20, you got hundreds of trillions of, it's just huge, okay? Enclosing a roughly spherical area, and it gives a volume in enormous numbers here, and it says calculate the approximate number of hydrogen atoms in the nebula. Who cares, okay? It's kind of nuts, but they do it, and they come up with 4.19 times 10 to the 60 atoms, which is an enormous, enormous, enormous number, okay? The Orion Nebula contains approximately that many atoms of hydrogen. A star like our sun is formed from approximately 1 times 10 to the 57 nebula, that means you could form more than 4,000 of our suns out of that one nebula. The numbers are just huge. More than 4,000 of our suns out of that one nebula. But that's a huge, huge area. So sometimes, rather than getting caught up in all the math, just read these things, and they're pretty amazing. Okay. On page 357, there's an enormously pretty picture. One of the Hubble Space Telescope pictures is there. All right, now we're over on page 358. Brightness of stars. Okay? A lot of this depends on our perspective, because we look at a star and say how bright it is. That may have nothing to do with much of it all about the star. It's just how bright it appears to us. Here are the things that make up the difference in stellar brightness. Stellar means stars, by the way. Stellar brightness. Number one is how much light is being produced by that star. Okay? That certainly matters. How much energy is happening in that star. The big, hot stars are producing an awful lot of light. Okay? So that certainly is one. But also the size of the star. Some of those stars that are producing an awful lot of light are not that big of stars. They may be massive, but they're not that big. You have other stars like the one we saw in that thing, that Arcturus, an enormous star. The reason it's enormous is it's on the way out. It's swelling, but it's not that hot. But it's so big, it's easy to see. So a small, very hot star may be hard to see because it's not big enough. Okay? So the size of stars matter. But the biggest key is how far you are from the star. We're very close to an average star, the sun, and it looks huge. Okay? We're a long way from a much hotter star, and you can hardly see it because it's so tiny. And so all these things. So these are the three factors that go into stellar brightness. Okay? Now, how do we define this brightness? There's several ways. The first we're going to look at is apparent magnitude. That's just us looking at it and saying, hey, that one's brighter than that one, this one's brighter than that one, this one's dimmer than that one. That's the apparent magnitude. Now, this scheme is to quantify the observed brightness. Just what you're seeing. The first magnitude stars, those are the brightest, are 100 times brighter than the sixth magnitude star. Sixth magnitude star. Okay? So there's a range of 100 times of brightness there. Okay? So they make 5 uniform divisions between these 6 magnitudes. You have one at here, the first and sixth here, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's 6. So you have the 5 uniform divisions in between those. They're approximately 20 times magnitude each time. Okay? Now, this is in your book, and it's probably hard to read from where you are, but you probably don't have your book yet, but if you look at your PowerPoint, you'll be able to see it maybe a little bit. Here is this. I'll read it to you. Sometimes I have trouble reading this. The naked eye with a large telescope, you can see what they call a plus 20 star. Now, here's something I've never heard anyone describe to my satisfaction of why they do it this way. The plus 20 is a very dim star. The minus 25 is the brightest. Duh! That doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't plus be the brightest and minus be the dimmest? I don't know. I'm sure there's some reason, but I don't know why. So here's our sun at minus 25. Nothing else is close to this. Our full moon is minus 10. Okay? Pretty bright, but it's nowhere close to as bright as the sun. Now, this is not a star. The brightest object in the sky after the sun and the moon, and you don't see it every night, but on nights you see it, will be Venus. Because Venus is the closest planet to us. It's also closer to the sun. It's also bigger than Mars, which is our next closest planet. But it's so much further than the moon is, it looks very small. It's way bigger than the moon. But that will be the next brightest thing you see in the sky. After the sun and the moon, Venus is next brightest. Next to that is Jupiter when you've got a full Jupiter. That's what it means by Jupiter in opposition. When the sun, you get all the reflected light off of Jupiter. Now Jupiter's a long way away, way further than Mercury. Mercury too, but Mars. But it's so much bigger that you see it. Okay? But the very brightest star you'll ever see is Sirius. Are you serious? Yeah, no, it's spelled differently, but anyway. And that's the 0. Okay? So that's the 6th magnitude star. Okay? Then somewhere down here, and there's another constellation out there somewhere called Andromeda. Okay? And one of the stars in Andromeda is not a star. It's a galaxy, just like we're in the Milky Way. But it's so far away, but it's got billions of stars in it. That's the Andromeda Galaxy. That's about a +4, approximately. The faintest star that can be seen with the naked eye is about a 7, +7. Okay? The naked eye with a good set of binoculars, about +10. Pluto in opposition, the brightest you'll ever see Pluto, if you ever see Pluto, will be a +15. You're going to have a telescope to see Pluto. You won't see it with binoculars. And then the naked eye with a large telescope, you can see up to close to +20. So this is the apparent brightness, apparent magnitude of the stars. These are the numbers 0 to 20. All positive. 0 being the brightest, +20 being the dimmest. Then the Jupiter, Venus, the moon, and the sun, they're way in the negative range there. Okay, so that's apparent magnitude. How are we doing on time? Okay? 5:30, 15 more minutes. What's that? I can't hear. Okay, whatever. Okay. My hearing is terrible. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You don't have to ask. You can go. Okay. Now, shortly after that, they had another example. The brightest star in the night sky is Sirius. It has an absolute magnitude of about 1.4, which tells us that Sirius gives off more light than our sun. How many times brighter is Sirius than our sun? Not apparent, but actually how much it's given off. And they do a ratio here, and this is based on equation 14.1, which is on page 358. It's a weird equation. You're not responsible for it, but it's 2.51 raised to the x. That's raised to the x is the distance, so that's the exponent, is equal to B2 over B1, where B2, those are the brightness of the two stars. And by working that out, you find out that Sirius is about 23 times brighter than our sun. Okay? The math involved with that is pretty hairy, so that's why I'm skipping it. Okay? But it just gives you that idea. They have another example there. Star A and star B are the same distance from the Earth. Star A has a magnitude of -1 and is 100 times brighter than star B. What is the absolute magnitude of star B? And that would be a +4. Okay, they're not real clear on that, but you can work through the math. But that just gives you an idea of playing with that. All right. So there's one. Absolute magnitude is, that was apparent magnitude. Okay? Now let's move to absolute magnitude. This is how bright the star really is if they were all at equal distance from you. How bright they really are. That's called, yuck, what did you just do? Okay, that's called the absolute magnitude. That's the brightness adjusted to a defined standard distance. So let's just imagine all the stars are equal distance to you. Okay? Our example of the sun, remember we said it was -26.7? We didn't say that, but that's what it is. Its absolute magnitude would be way down there at 4.8. Way small. Okay? That would put Sirius up there very close to, I think that's where they get the, whatever they said it was, 1.2 or something like that. Okay. Now, here's another term, luminosity. The total energy radiated into space per second. Energy is usually measured in joules, so it's joules per second. Now, it's directly related to the absolute magnitude, okay? The brighter the star, more energy is being radiated out, the absolute brightness. The units are correlated to the sun. We'll call the sun 1 solar luminosity. That would put Sirius as probably 4.8 or so solar luminosity. It might make a very dim star to be 0.5 solar luminosity. So this is our absolute magnitude. And you may wonder, who cares? What difference does all this make? Well, we're coming up with, it's going to be a while, probably next time before we get there, but we're going to be using absolute magnitude, which relates to how much energy is being radiated into space at any time. So we're going to jump to another topic, but we're going to come back to this. And this new topic is star temperature. Oh, yeah. Now, believe it or not, there's a reason it's jumping topic to topic. Because what we're going to get to is a really important concept. But they're trying to define all the things that get us to that concept. So that's where we are. First object in that concept is absolute magnitude. So you need to sort of know what that is. Okay? The next object or feature or measurement that gives you information on this is what's coming up next. Can I move now? Okay. And that's star temperature. Okay? And I think I have a really good memory. It's just short. Justin was asking this question earlier. The color variations are apparent, and these indicate surface temperature, star temperature. Which of these would you say are the hottest stars or the coolest stars? Red, yellow, blue, white. White is the hottest. Red is the coolest. Okay? You think of red as being hot, but in stars, that's a cool star. A very cool. Wear sunglasses. Not okay. All right. The color is related to the surface temperature of the star, and this follows what they call black body radiation curves. So here they're putting a whole new thing in here, and we're going to talk about that for a minute before we come back to star temperature. But the red are the coolest stars, the blues, and actually blue is hotter than white. White is blue, it should be reversed there. Blue is the hottest star. Guess where we are? Smack dab in the middle, yellow. We're average, very average. Okay? Now, the classification scheme is based on temperature. This is hottest to coldest. The very hottest stars out there, and these are very, very, very rare stars. These are the O stars. Very few of them, very rare, incredibly hot. That means they're burning up fuel like crazy. Okay? Then you get to B, and then A. Who put these letters together? I don't know. They don't follow any rhyme or reason. Then they get to F, and then G. Our sun happens to be right there in G. And then K and M. These are the coolest stars. Again, who picked out these letters? I don't know. There has to be a reason. I just don't know what it is. Here's what we mean. This is what we mean, the black body radiation curve. If you were to look at the spectrum of temperatures, I guess is the best way, well, no, the spectrum of light coming out of the stars. Okay, maybe that's the best way. The highest energy are down here, okay? Violet, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, and this, I don't know what color they call this. But yeah, this should almost ring a bell here. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, throw in an indigo and violet. Ring a bell. Roy G. Biv. This is the visible light spectrum. Okay? And the hottest of the stars are those in the bluest range, the violet area. The coolest of these are in the red range. And the yellows are right there in the middle. And that's where we are. Our sun is. Okay? Well, here's what this is based on. All of these curves, there's always radiation coming off that's lower and always radiation coming off that's higher. But where is the peak of that radiation? The coolest stars are down here, about 3,000 K. Remember, our sun was 5,800 K, right there. 5,800 would be just here in yellow. This would be slightly more greenish, okay? And the very hottest stars, those O stars, are up in the 10,000 K. Now, this is the surface temperature, yes.
I was going to say, isn't a wolf-white star an old-time star?
Say that one more time.
Wolf-white star.
Oh, what?
Wolf-white star.
Wolf-white? Is that what you said?
Wolf-white.
Okay, one more time.
Wolf-white star.
Wolf-white.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not familiar with this name.
This is supposed to be an old-time star.
Oh, okay, yeah, that is the hottest. That's the very, very, very hottest, yeah. I just wasn't used to that term. That's interesting. I've heard something similar to that, but I hadn't heard that. Okay. So, the hottest stars, the bluest stars, the coolest stars, the reddest stars. Okay? That's where we get this. And guess what? Your fire in your fireplace, most of that fire is what color? Red, but you get a little bit of yellow, right? But if you turn on your eye of your stove, that gas that you're burning there, what does that become? Blue. That's much hotter than that red flame in your thing. So very hot. It's in that little bright blue in the center of that with the hazy blue around. That's even hotter. Okay. All this fits. Okay. So let's look at some of those ranges. Now, I said the hottest stars were 10,000. That's what they showed here. I was wrong, okay? The hottest stars, these O stars, are 30,000 to 80,000 K. That is, and this is surface temperature. This isn't core, surface. That is incredibly, incredibly hot, okay? Now, what you have there is ionized helium and hydrogen, nothing else. Those are the two lightest gases. They're the only things that live there, and they're not as gases there as ions. Charged plasma, okay? The bluish stars, and this is on the surface, not in the interior, okay? The bluish stars, the B stars and the bluish stars, these are blue too. This is between 10,000 and 30,000. Spectrum with neutral helium, none of it ionized. Now this is on the surface. Inside it's all ionized, okay? The A stars, the next hottest one, are 7,500 to 10,000 K, and that's no helium, but strongest in hydrogen. You don't need to know this stuff. It's just sort of interesting. You get a little bit heavier, but still pretty light atoms in there too. Magnesium and calcium, not much. The F is the white stars. Those are 6,000 to 7,500. These are spectrum with ionized calcium and magnesium, neutral atoms of iron. Finally, a little iron is showing up. We'll find out later iron is one of the most common elements, solid elements in the, though it's not solid at these temperatures, it's still gas, okay? Here we are, the G, yellow, 5,000, 6,000 K, K. We were 5,800, so we were a pretty hot average star, okay, yellow star. Spectral type of the sun, spectrum shows 37 elements in the sun, okay? The spectrum that we see identifies the elements. That means some stuff is not even in there, okay? Stuff that we find on Earth. We have about 110, 15, 20, something like that on the Earth. Not all of those are on the sun. The K are the orange-red stars, okay? Those are down cool stars, cool, 3,500 to 5,000 K, packed with lines of neutral metals, okay? Not just a few elements, packed with neutral metals. And the M are the reddish stars, 2,000 to 3,500 K, band spectra of molecules, not just atoms. Now you get molecules, titanium oxide, other related spectral types based on molecules present in the spectrum. Don't need to know all this, but just get an idea. Up here is all ions, even on the surface. It's all plasma. Down here you actually get molecules. Okay. Is it time?
Yeah.
Oh no, just when we're beginning to have fun, we're running out of time. Okay. Where we'll start next time, and we're not going to do a lot with it, but we'll look at example 14.4 just to see if there's anything of any interest there for us. All right, now, most of the time we're probably not going to have homework per se, but what you can always do is start looking toward the back of the chapter, the end of the chapter, and start looking at things that might be useful in the future. Applying the concepts is one thing that's going to be really a pretty good thing to look at. And once you get into stuff that doesn't pertain to something we've talked about already, stop. Because these pretty much go as you go through the chapters. So you can start looking at some of those. And then after that, questions for thought, you can look at a few of those. We haven't gotten as far as Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, so don't get too far in that. Further analysis, you can look a little bit at those. But basically, don't sweat it. Good deal. One more thing, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next Tuesday. And more than likely, we'll finish the chapter on Tuesday and may have time for the first lab. Okay? We'll see. Thanks for keeping up with the time for me.